that video is just egregious at best. I think that's a flattering way of wording it, to be honest, because it didn't even start with saying, yo, sorry, by the way, sorry I all those people out of, you know, online events, the biggest LAN in PUBG so far to date at the time. It's just on all fronts just deplorable, to be honest with you, to even put that video out from my point of view.
Yeah, you can imagine the bio's pretty good.
5 million, by the way. 5 million.
Apparently.
5 million. I saw Victor tweet, "Hawk out," and I'm like, before the game, I'm like, oh no, really? Why, dude? No, come on. And looked medium. It looked medium on that map. They lost obviously 13-9 on Ascent when they started bringing them. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Valoranting, a show all about ranting. Sometimes we actually cover news and current affairs in the Valorant world, but it's not guaranteed. It's more of an asterisk at the end of the title. If you are wanting to catch previous episodes of the show or just know how to follow when we go live, you can check us out at youtube.com/Valoranting. And we now have a Twitter handle, PogChamp, at Valoranting Show on Twitter. Yeah, we're only days, I'm told, away from being verified on Twitter. So it is all happening awfully quickly. Great to be back. I am Mitch Leslie here. I'm joined by Vansilli. And for the first time, it's our pleasure to welcome MitchMan to the show. Thanks for joining us, mate.
Hey, no worries, bro. Pleasure to be here.
I mean, we're going to be picking your brain at length later on, especially when it comes to all things Europe, but it'll be good to have you weigh in on the stuff we discuss in the show, because today we have a pretty stacked show. There's a lot to discuss in this last week of Valorant. First of all, Stunner joins T1, and people are surprised to hear that. We'll get some inputs and some opinions from people who know on that issue a little bit later on. We're going to talk about this slowly increasing quality of life for streamers out in Europe, especially when it comes to getting these VCT games broadcast. Then we're going to go and talk with Hypoc here. We're going to have him discuss with us a little bit about what's going on with Stunner, and then Hypoc, of course, will stick around, hopefully, and we can pick his brain as well. We're going to talk about VCT. We've got, obviously, Challenges 1 is done in EU. They've already started with number 2, so we can go through both of those. And then we can have a look back at the VCT NA from this weekend just gone, because there were some incredible results. So great to see some of these, you know, underdog teams rising up and actually getting themselves into the final. So that's the show. That's the long and short of it. Gentlemen, I know, a bit of monologuing. Forgive me. Just kidding. I do it all the time. We're gonna jump into some developer stuff here, because there was a discussion this week about agent bans and when they might happen, and why that would be a good, bad, or ugly thing for the game.
I think it's a good thing, to be honest. But yeah, just the clarification at first, right? So the Valorant news or whatever leaks it was is like, okay, well, maybe we're going to wait until we have 30 agents and then try to get into the bans after, and it'll be nice. And then it was just a clarification from Nick Wu saying, look, it was just a personal opinion, nothing about that. I mean, everybody has like different opinions about it, and it's still under discussions. Overall, though, I still think it's a good thing, because if you look at League of Legends, they have a lot of champions in there. If you look at Rainbow Six, they have a lot of operators, whether they're attack or defense. And when you have like this ban pick phase for the Rainbow Six scene, you still have some players that could play some very good operators and have some very good games. I think Valorant could actually get to that point if we're going to be at 30 agents on each side and have, or 30 agents overall rather, and then have a bad pick phase. We just need maybe more agents first.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things is getting different roles in as well. Like, if you think about it right now, if we were to apply it, Omen, Brim, Band, okay, well, you have to play Astra. Like, you're going to maybe have Viper with the new meta, but you have to have much more flexibility. If they were to take out a Cypher and a Killjoy, it ruins the composition and the game plan of a lot of teams. So when I spoke to some of the devs a while back, it was on stream, so I think we can talk about it. They had said, this is probably going back 6 months, that it was absolutely like not in the discussion. Like, it wasn't even brought up. It's nothing that they're thinking about at this moment in time. And to me, I was wondering, how far ahead did they plan things? I imagine it's quite a decent amount. So I think it's going to be a good while before we see anything. I think 30 agents is probably in and around the right area that conversation is going to come up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one, because a lot of game developers feel strongly about being introducing anything into the game that could be reductive, or anything that sort of removes anything that they have tirelessly designed, you know, from the game, even for a short period of time. I mean, we wrestled with this. We wrestled with this. Shit a brick. I mean, we dealt with first of all, Vansilli, I don't know if you know this, but when Overwatch first came out, you could play as many of a certain hero as you wanted at any one time. That was completely fucking acceptable. You could literally walk up into a ring, drop your balls on the table, and play 6 Winstons. And just see how it went. This was impossible competitively, because what happened is that people started playing 6 divas, and then they just stalled the cart infinitely. But before this, we already warned the devs, like, hey guys, this is a problem. There is going to be issues with this. You really should consider restricting it to 1 hero limit. Blizzard almost pulled an event from ESL because I was one of the people leading the charge for 1 hero limit, and because I obviously was associated with ESL at the time, they threatened to pull the event from them. And then you know what they did? That a week later, they made that decision, and then let Face It run the first tournament with 1 hero limit, just to spite us. So anyway, I can understand why it doesn't always work with the philosophy of developers to remove stuff from their game, but I don't think like these guys work for Riot. You know, League of Legends is probably successful because you have a draft phase. I just think a lot of devs say that they don't feel like a draft phase is very compelling on broadcast. They don't really. I like it in League. It's with the analyst desk. I also think gets to actually do something sort of in real time and on the fly. But here, I mean, this is an example in Japan, right? This is what Detonation, and I think that's absolute Jupiter's logo.
Yeah, correct.
These two, I mean, here you go. You let people ban, and they just ban like the most
common,
the most like handy heroes, Initiator, and you get rid of Sova. Like, okay, now maybe there's a couple other options outside of Sova, but
well, I mean, you take Sova and Sky away, and then that's no Initiators again. Like Breach maybe, but like still, it's too early. It's too early. But I'm in the same school of thought as you, though, Uber. I think at that point, if we're able to get more agents, then the draft pick phase would be awesome, because if, let's say, there is 5 or 6 Initiators available by then if you actually do get rid of Sova and you get rid of Breach, that'll be great for the analysts on that desk to be like, oh, what can this person play? What can Vice do right now? Or what can Cloud9 do in terms of like an execution type? I think that'll be fun to like analyze and then pass it to the casters so that it could actually describe everything that's been talked about on the desk as they're theory crafting what can happen in that gameplay. And I think it will be nice in terms of like as much as teams are practicing versus each other right now, that ace that they have under their sleeve to be like, we don't mind if you ban this agent. We have another one that's going to change the whole strat, and whatever playbook you have against us is not going to work. And I think that will be fun to talk about.
Mitch, what do you reckon about this when Nick Wu was sort of used the example of like someone like Tens getting banned, right? It's like, people want to see Tens play Jet. And then if we allow this to sort of be, is it better to see him on Jet or not as a result, because the pick rate agent is so high?
I mean, I think it would certainly spark a lot of really interesting discussion around it. If someone decided to ban Jet, but then they still had all the supportive elements there, obviously we're in a little bit of trouble. When you look at, I mean, the best example for me is somebody that literally only plays one agent, and that's CNET over in Europe. The dude is unreal. So you go in there, you're like, oh, do we take out like a Sova? Do we take out like a Breach? Or do we just get that guy off Jet? Like, just get him out. And he's already shown he's capable of going down to like a Reyna. We know a lot of operas are. But
yeah,
it would spark a lot of really interesting, not only discussion from a broadcast perspective, but also for a team. You would have to be not prepared for your A plan, but your B and C plans as well, with different agent lineups, with different ways of approaching the game, including, what are they going to pick? I would love to see it where like each team can only pick an agent. Like, so for example, if I pick Sova, you can't pick Sova. Now, we will need a lot of agents for that to be possible. They do it in League. They've got like what, over 140. I pity myself the day that happens. But when we reach those kind of numbers, because when I spoke to the devs, I said, listen, 6 agents every year. Every year, or are we thinking stop it in 4 and 5? And they were like, no, we're gonna do this forever, dude. As long as the game's around, we're adding 6 to it. And I'm like having Vietnam flashbacks, like, oh no, like I was on the analyst desk. Well, he played this agent before and this one. But I think it'll be a lot of fun when we get to that stage. And I think being able to, as we were saying a second ago, right, having 6 initiators, for example. And it works, even if 2 of them get banned, you should still be able to go back and play the 4th one or the 5th one, and it'll force more individual skill on players to be more flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is to say, even with 145, agents in Valorant, there'll still always be a meta. It will cycle through, and it won't be, such a nightmare. But one of my favorite parts,
though.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite parts is having a desk.
Yeah.
Do real-time analysis, because a lot of the time, like for desks, a lot of it's prepared, right? But I love real-time analysis from desks. I think it's really quite. Sometimes I would even think of using like a good desk, like a Counter-Strike desk, for example, just to name one. Having a co-stream, that would be kind of cool. Give you something a little bit different. Maybe if you're a CS caster, maybe you just want the desk to shut up and wait their turn, which is fine.
Game.
Yeah, so I think pick and ban is quite compelling, but like people at Blizzard, not everyone, this is not a universally shared opinion, but when I brought it up, I'm like, we're gonna have a draft phase. They're like, yes, I don't think it's. So instead, we put a fucking bunch of balls in a spinny thing and pull them out and tell players what fucking heroes they can't play for a certain week. Brilliant. Well, okay, yeah, much better. Much better. Yeah, shit. So glad I thought of that. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about, we have obviously Ask Valorant, which is a panel or like a sort of column where we sort of get to hear back from the devs on some of the most asked questions that they've received. This is one about the unintended use of agent abilities. At least, so to frame this properly, this is about agents being used in ways that the devs didn't really foresee. So like the barrier orb creating some fucked up boosts. So I'll paraphrase this. Or like ability combos they weren't expecting. So I kind of
one ways with smokes.
This is a statement, at least, Vansilli, about how they are approaching dealing with stuff that they don't expect that players come up with that surprises them.
Yeah, and all those changes are just going to come very slowly, right? If it's going to be the way that I'm reading this, and that I'm assuming how this is going to go on their whiteboard is, if it does turn out to be like game breaking or turn out to be an exploit or something like that, then of course it's going to be talked about, patched and fixed. But I think if they're creative and it doesn't break the meta or break the execution, like for example, again, like I saw on the stream from, I think it was Link that was putting the smoke where he crouches in under the staircase of Ascent on B and he's able to shoot some feet and kill him. That's pretty cool. That's innovative. And that's a smart way to play. And if that's not going to be a smoke that's going to be groundbreaking because it falls into an area that it's not supposed to on the map, then you could leave it in there, in my opinion, right? It's another place to check for players, another place to spam, and a great way to like continue to evolve the meta of this game.
100% agree with you. I think there's a lot of things though that definitely need to be patched out. Like for example, there's a couple different positions that you can put cipher cams right now that they can see through, but you can't shoot them. And to the extent that like teams don't even know that they're not supposed to use those because it's hard, right? You find out this ability and it's just like, oh, is this a cool little thing I can do with it, or is this something that was unintentional? So it's a tough situation when you're coming to deciding what needs to stay in and out. I think that's where, for me, look, I have a Counter-Strike background, so for me it's like, oh, one-way smokes, that's allowed. One-way walls, I don't know. Like, is it allowed? If it should be, it shouldn't. I really don't know where I sit on that.
Yeah, I see that too, and I think that's the other thing. It's once these things are going to get patched and decided or whatnot, there has to be consistency throughout all the TOs, right? Because sometimes in EU, it's like missed on some cases, and it's missed also on NA on other cases. And we could talk about like even the nanoswarms that's in the boxes of Ascent Hell. Sometimes it's allowed, but then other tier 2 events it's not. So there's got to be some consistency in some place where people could actually look at this rule book that's more official. That's going to come out from Riot.
That also requires Riot though to be like involved in that substratum of Valorant competition, which they generally prefer not to be. Right?
Time to build a new esports jobs in Riot.
Honestly, though,
it might be a job. Yes.
Yeah. I can say the one thing that would fix that though is just a rule book. Like at the moment we don't have rule books in VCT, and going back to exactly what I was saying about the EU teams, I made a tweet about that camera because I saw it being used. It got used against my team at Masters. It got used against my team in VCT. We still won, but it was whatever. Like it's annoying when you lose a round or whatever. You see that being used. Now, in the case the second time, our opponents didn't know because the players told them like, yo, don't use that camera again, that's broken. And they're like, oh shit, really? Okay, sorry. They didn't know about it, and obviously we can't rewind the round or whatever, we just went on. But then I saw him like watching some streams of games, and I'm like, there's that fucking camera again, it's not allowed. But the only way that you can actually tell if that camera is allowed or not is when you put it up, you message an admin and go, yo, this one here, can I use that? And then you put it to the left of bingo, this one here. And the ruling is if you can see the camera but not destroy it, it's illegal. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to define when your camera, like maybe there's an angle you didn't think about or all that sort of stuff. And if they publish a rule book, hey, there's the tweet. If we publish a rule book, like a straight up, you can do this one, this one, this one. This nanoswarm's allowed, this one isn't. Then all the other tournaments can turn around and say, okay, this is the rule book. Like, they will do that because it's easier for them. They don't have to deal with all that shit. They just go, oh, we're going to use the Riot rule book. You read that. Like,
I love the sass. It's like, if you're using it, you know you can't use it, and you should know that.
Yeah.
So one thing I can say on in this issue is that in the promised land of NA VCT, in the Nursery Games Discord, there is like a database that is kept active with a list of all the exploits currently that are known to and are known to Riot and not allowed to happen, with video examples of them. Now, from what I saw, I went through them, and what I saw, like it was a lot of the Killjoy Molly stuff, like underneath like the A site on Ascent, and I think there's one I saw the other day that someone put inside tube on B site bind, like just up, like at like head level. They put a Killjoy Molly up here inside the container on the B side. And I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, it like hits the entire tube, and maybe even I think it actually hits. I don't know. Anyway, so those will Riot. We're gonna have to keep up with that. There might be a time lag as well between like those exploits being detected or not. Obviously, the cam one that Mitch you pointed out, maybe not so.
But that's the thing, right? So that at least NSG, they put that in their Discord, but then you have, for example, when Mitch was saying, oh, you have to go see like the admin and see if it's okay. What happened between that G2 and Guild game when it was that Killjoy on wall boost onto B main, where they actually did try to talk to an admin and nobody answered too, right? So at some point, there's you gotta store it somewhere and make sure that it's accessible for when an admin is probably dealing with another event or another dispute. Then you could actually refer to that and get that done. So again, to get back on that consistency again for all the TOs and place to house it.
Yeah, rule book would be good, but again, and it needs to be a living rule book, like a database of exploits, I think, for sure.
Yeah, the on that topic, actually, the touchy topic of the First Strike Guild ban, they were, so at the time, I think the rule set was basically, if you do something that's kind of deemed to be an exploit, then you lose the game, and that's how they just got banned for it. What the rule set is at the moment is if it isn't explicitly, and it's good and it's bad. So for example, the camera, if you use that camera, a broken camera, a team can say, hey, you can't do that again. They can call the admin, but the admin will come in and go, hey, don't do it again. Now you know. Because there isn't an official rule book, they can't say, oh, you knew it was illegal, so you lose the game. No, they have to warn them then, which means, for example, let's say that I'm starting a brand new team, because obviously we reported it, so we wouldn't have the ability to plead ignorance. So I start a brand new team with my buddies. We go, we play, and we're wrecking all these easy teams. You're going to save it, right? Save it for heretics, and you need one more round to win. Oh, pop up that camera. And all of a sudden, that's one, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that's where, like, a rulebook is necessary for sure. Obviously, then but I did like the change. Although it's bad in the moment, I think it's better because for Guild, I can see, okay, you know you can't put the wall where they put it. You know you can't do it. But at the same time, you don't know you're going to get banned for it. Maybe it's like unintended, but it's not strictly banned. And if there's no clarification on exactly what is legal and what isn't, how are you ever supposed to decide what to do and what not to do?
Yeah. Shows that it stems further than just like, hey, you're playing ranked or you're playing unrated and these abilities are happening. What will the devs do? You're going to have to look at now like the integrity of the esports of the competition, and again, I think that's a different wing that has to be considered, right? That's going to be separate from like, oh, just a random bug that we saw here in a rank game.
Yeah, I mean, and the reality is that like the best analogy you can give is that Riot are trying to guarantee and safeguard the integrity of the game engine, and literally every player can be considered as an entity that is trying to assail that. So it is it is not an easy job for them. Speaking of safeguarding the integrity of the game, let's talk about the patch notes 2.07. Patch notes have dropped. Now, this weekend's games will be on 2.06. So no huge change. Yeah, no, again, I think Riot have cottoned on to this idea of not just like foisting a new patch onto people, which is great. We have changes to Astra and Raze specifically. So let's talk about this one because I feel like this one now, Gravity Well being able to suck a player off of the defuse seems pretty important.
It
insane. Go ahead, Mitch. I think you're pretty vocal
Yeah,
about that.
I'm very opinionated on this one for sure. Obviously, in EU we're 2.05 this weekend. You guys are 2.06, so we're even further
Correct.
behind, which means I get to keep my sanity for probably a week longer than you guys when this update comes out. 07. As you can see, right, the gravity well allows you to pull them back, and I want to do a thought experiment here, right? We're gonna pretend you're a defensive side. Your Cypher has died on the light side of your defense, and they've got the spike down. They're playing post plan. You now have, against some compositions, no choice but to send it, but to go and just take fights as much as you possibly can, because that gravity well comes up every 12 seconds. Remember, it's the stars that limit Astra's abilities, not her ability bar. So she can use a gravity well, and 12 seconds later use another. So let's say you clear your angles, you take it methodically, you get to the site. You have 30 seconds left. Nano Swarm activated. Oh, well, we'll wait a minute to go for that defuse. It's all right. Just make sure no one pushes us. Okay, no one's coming. Let's go for the defuse. Oh, I've been gravity welled off it, so I'm off that. But my buddy can defuse. Oh, there's a poison orb going up from Viper with a snake bite coming in. Oh, we'll wait for that to go. Okay, jump in the poison orb. Oh, another snake bite. Okay, hold on. I'll just go back on it now. Brimstone Molly. Okay, I'll just go back and I'll jump back on it. Oh, I've been pulled off by a gravity well. Oh, I fucking lost the round. Like, it's going to be insane. Like, potentially. You're going to have to go and fight these dudes. And the problem with Astra is that, you know, it's not like a Brimstone Molly. You're not like, okay, well, there's a lineup here, there's a lineup here. Let's go take that map control and go for the defuse. Let's catch him as he's his Molly out in the lineup.
Like, across the map.
She could be on bind and she's doing it on ascent. Like, she can be anywhere. It's insane. What are you supposed to do? Like, she can be flanking you, pulling you off the spike and killing you in the back. It's going to be insanely difficult to adjust to for the start. There are a lot of counters you can think of to it, but ultimately I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
I agree with that too. I mean, you could even just set up your 5 stars at the beginning on the fucking spike anyways.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna be like, well, you can't do anything because you can't shoot them out. So again, the hot hands, the shock darts, mollies.
Yep.
It's only the nanoswarms that you can actually shoot them out so that it doesn't give you damage. For the rest, all these lineups are going to be so strong.
Yes.
Poach was actually tweeting out before, was like, it's going to be nice to see the meta now in 2.06. And I tweeted back, it's going to be attackers all dead, 4 defenders standing around a puddle of Viper Pit and mollies just staring at a spike going off pretty much. And then it's going to be a matter of time to see if they can defuse it or not. So I think now it becomes even more important to have an agent that's going to have an ability to remove some of this shit on the ground.
You know,
like, I think it only makes sense now.
One other thing that I should also point out at the moment, because we thought it was a bug, but it hasn't been fixed yet to the best of my knowledge in 2.07. You can also see the spike being diffused as Astra. Like, you can see it go up, and so if they... You can't say, for example, I'll fake it. Did they fix it? I didn't.
Yeah,
I
because you can see the little ring move
Yeah,
up as they defuse it or whatever, but I'm pretty sure they tried to change that now. Yeah.
Right, okay. I didn't catch that in the patch notes. So if that was the case, then it would just be insane. You couldn't even bait out the defuse, but that's good if they fixed it. We're still on 05. Do you know which update they fixed it in?
I think they hot fixed it like a week after Astra came out, because there was a bunch of like there was a bunch of Reddit videos that came out right after when Astra came out, right? Yeah, Jonas came out with one. And I'm pretty sure they hotfixed it, so you can't see it anymore.
Sweet. Okay. I'm feeling a bit more calm now internally.
At least for now. You still have all those mollies and shit that we just talked about before, so it's gonna be insane. I think now you're looking at a meta, where the retakes, like Mitch said, is gonna be super extensive and aggressive. Like, you have no time to waste. Whoa. You actually have to push outside. Okay, so let's say there's a Raise Alt 2 that goes into B side of Bind. Everybody gets pushed back on the Defender spawn, and everybody's falling back. Or a lockdown. Spike gets planted. Now everybody from the Defender sides has to push back not only into the site, but into Hookah, back towards Long, into Fountain, just to push those guys out. And then you got some guys lurking around for A side. I don't know, average Jonas shock darts as well from showers. It's going to be fucking insane. It's going to be fun, chaotic, but you're going to have to give it some time, and then we'll probably hotfix some stuff.
Yeah, well, you won't be incentivized to play to defend against retakes from the side itself. So, and if attackers can play fast enough ahead of defenders utility, which is really easy if you just like, especially at the B site, you just like omen smoke everything and just like run on the side like that. Just have to run. Like maybe there's like one defending player that stays on site, but one's in elbow, they're stuck. One's in halls, they're stuck. Like, they can't do anything. Yeah, I'd be interested to see what they do about this, because maybe they need to make I don't know what they do about the snake bite, right? They can obviously make the poison orb destroyable if they really wanted to, but it's the molly that's really annoying to deal with as well.
Yeah.
Still, at least the poison orb obviously can be activated remotely, right? So that might be one of the more annoying things. So getting rid of that is probably a start, but
Just
I mean,
makes you die faster. But if not, like the snake bite still 150s to zero you if you're standing in it, right?
Yeah.
You're still gonna die if you stand in it. That's the issue too.
It's the thing, like with the poison orb and in 2.06, like the fact that it's taking the 50 HP, it's decaying you. One shock dart, like you can delay so much more time.
Exactly.
Instead of double shock dart lineup, you do one, you do the next one, you gravity well. Yeah, and you just keep going. It's a never-ending cycle of utility just coming in to fuck up your day. Like, I don't know what you can do. Maybe, though.
Defenders have to play so aggressive now.
Yeah. The next agent, realistically, could be someone with, like, an umbrella, and they just stand there and hold it up.
Yeah, it's just Mary fucking Poppins, you know what I mean? Blocks that shit.
from Apex, pretty much, right? Just throw that dome, and it just protects you in that dome.
It could be. It genuinely could be, like, blocks all utility coming in, and then what do? Your post-plant meta's gone.
I guess it also means that like if you're running those comps, like your defense rounds may suffer somewhat, I guess. But I feel like people defending against this kind of like impossible retake scenario have to like play extremities early in the round and just like take duels.
Moral of the story: don't let them spike the plant.
So it's going to force people to play like it's the Stinger meta again, essentially. Just play forward and take these whack duels. Anyway, Raze also gets changed as well. Basically, they want to make it so you can fucking hear the literal Brazilian Hindenburg as it just descends towards you at a rate of knots. So now you can hear when she's been boosted into the air by the blast pack, which is probably pretty handy. Also, after the explosion, I guess the explosion graphics decays or disappears quicker, so you can, on the off chance that you're still alive, I guess this would only be relevant if you're playing against Sabrosa, I guess, but the graphics will disappear faster. Great quality of life, James. Big pod.
Pretty dope. I thought it was going to be some changes too with like pain shells, because sometimes when they explode in the front and then the rays hides in the back and then it's still blowing up with colors, it still like turns into like slightly one ways or like cloudy smokes that you could try to spray through. But the showstopper is a good start. At least if you don't get killed by it, your teammates can help you out with that, but we'll see for the rest.
I actually think the blast packs are pretty huge as well, because something I was commenting on when we were casting VCT, when I see Yassine a lot of the time, especially because he was one of the hot talking points going through the last stage of VCT over in EU for Guild, and he uses blast packs at the very start of the round. So basically you can time it so you pop the blast pack and they're not going to hear the blast pack, and all of a sudden you're in their face. So in their head, like, oh, he can be like over there, and now boom, you've shot him in the head. And Yassine does it a lot. He'll catch a lot of players off guard with it. I'm sure there's a lot of players in NA that do it that I'm less familiar with, and he will now have a tougher time, and most Raze players will have a much tougher time of catching people off guard now that they can actually be heard flying through the air. So it was a pretty proactive one, because I wouldn't say it was like broken, like it wasn't insanely overpowered, because you had to be so good to be able to use it. Your timing had to be perfect, but it's good that they've taken notice of it.
Yeah. What is it? You hear like a jet sound when it passes by you when she zooms by?
I guess so. Flights might be slightly nerfed now. Maybe.
Sometimes it's hard to say. Sometimes you're already dead. We'll see. Maybe with the HRTF working, maybe this makes a bit of a difference. All right. Let's talk about some roster changes here, because we had a couple over multiple different regions. And the first one I want to talk about is the wholesale changes that Built by Gamers have made. They hadn't made this. And obviously these roster changes sort of, you could argue they precipitated in part their victory, the upset win over Sentinels recently. So they dropped Foe, or Fur, if we're going to use the proper pronunciation of it, I guess. Right? Vansilli, right?
Right. Foe. But his pronunciation is definitely Foe still, yeah.
Okay, so Foe leaves. Poach gets added. Now, we wondered what the hell was going on with Poach for quite some time. He was with Andbox and was probably one of the pioneers in North America of Viper play. A lot of people sort of, I think even we said looked up to Poach and, wanted to try and adapt some of his play style. So Poach comes in, theoretically as IGL, playing the Omen, and Raka gets added as a Jet duelist. So new look BBG, and I mean, things go a little wrong for them sort of later on in the PC. I think they lose to Exet in the first round and then lose to version 1. But it was the qualifiers, I think, for VCT where they looked really quite good. And obviously the win against Sentinels, where it was an upset and maybe it was a fluke or maybe just a one-off, it was still pretty impressive. They were very, very good at applying pressure across the map.
Definitely. I think congratulations to those two players to get officially signed by BBG after that. What's good about at least for BBG is that despite them losing to exit into version 1, they still don't have to go through the gauntlet, right, of the open qualifiers into challengers 2. So that is going to be some room to breathe, some room for these two players to continue to evolve with this roster. And with Poach's mind, we're probably going to be able to see some more upsets from BBG going into the challengers too. And I do get it with what you were saying, Uber. If we did was looking at the Poach, maybe that's why we did also started seeing some different things from like the Viper that Poach was doing too on Icebox before.
Yeah, I mean, he was in it was an interview and Run It Back, I think, where they talked to him about sort of some of his inspiration. So I thought that was quite interesting. Poach obviously is an IGL. Speaking of IGLs, G2, they sit Zeke, or they drop him, and then Aussie is announced as a stand-in to operate as their IGL, which to me is such an insane concept, obviously, to use a stand-in player as an in-game leader. Mitch, how to get your take on this one here? Because it seems to have, so far, at least in VCT 2, in Challengers 2 rather, has served G2 fairly well.
These guys look better than they ever have, hands down. Like with, I don't know exactly what changed. Obviously, they've had a lot of time to adapt, but for the longest time, since the beginning of this G2 roster, we have said they need an IGL. We always called into question for how long can the way that they're playing actually work, because yes, you have a lot of players who know the game intimately. They can make calls themselves, but when it's such a loose environment where whoever feels it is making that call, you can never really be as structured and efficient as you want to be as a professional team. So with Aussie coming in, I had some high hopes that there was going to be some changes, but Jesus, they played so good. It was unbelievable. And it's not just down to, oh, they were winning, they won the games. That's great. It's like they literally had Heretic's playbook. They were ready for everything these guys did. And like, I've never, ever seen G2 anti-strat someone. Like, I've seen them destroy them with aim. I've seen them overly aggress to the point that it's ridiculous and it worked, but I've never seen them just systematically tear apart a game plan like they did in that game. And I'm a really big fan of this change, but when we interviewed Aussie, he was saying that at the moment, so Zeke, from my understanding at least, Zeke is not like officially gone. He's just sitting out of this one. So I think there might be some health reasons behind that. And Aussie was brought in because they needed someone last minute to jump in. But he's such a good fit for this team from what we can see on the outside anyways, and from speaking with them, that I would be surprised if he doesn't stay on. I think this is a really good change for G2. And now it's just down to them to figure out. Even Aussie said that his future on this team is like there's conversations going on. They're figuring it out. But as of right now, he doesn't even know how long he'll be with them.
This is consistent with how they dealt with David P in the early days as well, because he was a stand-in for the longest time when everyone was like, I mean, turns out guys, end up leaving the team anyway, and turns out he's kind of a shitter, but that's a whole nother story. But I mean, they went quite a long time without sort of announcing him, and he was sort of trying out, I think, for the team for ages. But we also got to see Patek play Reyna on a couple of maps now, I guess, without Zeke in the lineup, and
looks good.
It looked. I mean, Split was a curious map, I think, but yeah, it's an interesting change for obviously the previous sort of Omen player. It's nice to see the change up for G2. Maybe it's just a breath of fresh air, but yeah, we're all wondering about the longevity of this particular arrangement, especially if Zeke is only out for. Do we know? Sorry, Mitch. Do we know why Zeke is sitting out?
I'm not sure. I think I know, but I'm not sure if it's public knowledge the exact reason. From what I understand, it's a health issue with him at the moment, that he's not feeling too good, so he couldn't go to the boot camp anyways with them, feeling as ill as he did. So, but I don't know if because Zeke coming in, obviously he's a very fresh addition, and that was to fix a problem, and that problem was not fixed. But it's been such a short window for them to really mess around with it. There's a strong possibility that they still believe that that's going to be the better avenue, because when you take a player out, put someone else in, there's going to be an adjustment period, and especially because they're already trying to deal with the IGLing situation. From what I understand, when Zeke came in, we even thought he was coming in as an IGL, but it was actually him sharing the role with Mixwell, and they were the ones mostly calling, but it was still a very loose and relaxed environment. Whereas with Aussie, he's come in and they have said to him, we want you to IGL. We want you to lead this team. To me, That's a very strange thing to say to a stand-in. If you're getting a stand-in, you don't change the whole dynamic of your team for a very important tournament.
Yeah. I think overall, like even looking at G2, because as they were as dominant when TSM was back then in like the beta days, now we were struggling to figure out where G2 was going to be when, one, they're not even qualifying, or two, they're like losing in the quarterfinals, just like TSM kind of is doing right now. They're not really at that top level yet. So now that they finally qualify into the main stage for VCT Challengers 2, it's like, oof, we could breathe a little bit, but it's still not where we expect G2 to be yet, right? Like if they lose out in the first round of main stage, it's like, it seems we accept it right now, which kind of sucks. I want to see them back on the top. And looking at how their latest addition, Aussie, was for the team, it looked pretty good. It was in the right direction. Like you said, Mitch, it was a little bit messy to look at Split overall. It looked pretty okay but seeing Mixwell on a raise was kind of different for me, because I felt like that some abilities weren't as fluid as when he was playing that Jet, but it did work. They still got the victory. So I think, again, if they're on the right track, would you keep Aussie at this point? I would like to. I would like to.
Yeah, it's like, what are you gonna do if your Zeke is out there? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
if Zeke
right.
has, look, if it's health issues, especially if it's, dare I say, pandemic related as well, it's a whole nother story. Like Dapper this week, I don't know if you see this, but Dapper has actually tweeted. He said, honestly, I think I have COVID.
Oh shit.
But someone was like, mate, what the fuck? Like, they are doing free vaccinations in Texas right now, like right down the road from me, basically. And he's like, oh yeah, procrastination, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so that's because he said like he can't taste anything, right? Which is a very commonly associated
one of
symptom
the
of COVID.
symptoms,
So,
yeah.
for fuck's sake, mate, go, please go and get jabs, please.
I mean, look, he's got Flintstone multivitamins. He says it's fine. It'll be okay.
Yep, no, the gummy ones are fucking lit. It's 70 calories per gummy, and like you need to have 3 of them. So it's really, it's just really great. Let's talk about some breaking news here, because Cloud9 White just announced that they're parting ways with Katie. So obviously this is not long after they picked her up. She's performed extremely well with her. Yeah, they won Game Changers. The only hint that I have is that when we talked with Mel, she sort of said that, because I think Alexis and Katie, I think those two, or was it Jazzy as well?
School.
I don't know. Yeah,
Alexis and Jazzykins, yeah.
Right. Okay. So maybe not Katie in this case, but she said that, like they are busy juggling their education as well as playing, and I have to, I've had to help them out on occasion, or in terms of just like finding lineups for them or whatever. So I don't. It's kind of weird, to be honest. The thank you graphic they can knock up in a couple seconds, so it doesn't necessarily mean they prepared it. But the statement is so brief. You know what I mean? When you see these goodbyes, like we've decided to part ways, we wish them all the best. You know what I mean? It's I do have to wonder what happened. I don't want to gloat, but I did sort of we have been talking in the past about how these 6-player rosters are always kind of cursed, right? Always kind of doomed in a way.
Yeah. Even looking at Katie with like even her interview and at the Game Changers when they won, it was like, man, she has so much confidence with the team, and it looks like the team is going to go pretty far with this roster. The only thing that I could think of is that maybe she got an offer that was better, and not necessarily better for Cloud9 and Game Changers, but it's like just competing at like the I don't know, with like a mixed team or whatnot, where she wants to maybe look explore further than the Game Changers and whatnot too. So that could be a possibility. A possibility there. Sorry, or it's also the fact that she might want to go back to CS because that's where she came from. That's a game that she also enjoys playing. So it could be a change of heart to be like, after playing this competition, I've achieved it, and now it's time to go back to CS. I don't know. It just happened, right? So we don't have any news of what is the reasoning of why she departed with Cloud9.
I think that there's always I mean, let's be straight here. We made changes over at Alliance after making Masters, and it was a very very peculiar thing. It was very much debated on why that happens, and it's not always apparent from the outset. Like, a player can perform really well, but there's so many different things that can happen. Like, you can have attitude problems with them. They could just not fit, like in the work ethic, especially if you're running a 6-man roster. You think about, you're getting a direct comparison of what you have and what you can have. You're putting in new players. Maybe the mood is just better. Maybe they like motivate you more. Maybe they play off their teammates a bit better. They make you perform. There's so many things that can happen that can put you in a spot where you just feel like, you know what? I think the team overall is going to be better with this lineup than with the one that has someone, you know, fragging out like an animal. And I think, you know, Aussie is a good example of that, where we know it's because he's IGLing and stuff, but I'm saying when it comes down to personality traits, they're not going to talk about that. It doesn't shine through the same way. And if you put it on paper, Aussie versus Zeke is a far better individual player, and yet Aussie will be better for the team potentially in the long run. So it's one of those things, it's impossible to ever know unless you're on the inside.
Yeah, and obviously Yinsu mentioned in the chat she beat me to the punch. She reached out to Dream and asked, and he didn't have much to add at the time. What do you think about like a Gen G picking up KD, like an Owa, you know?
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know, like what teams are you know, if we're trying to think about teams that didn't quite get us, because I think CLG
Dignitas maybe.
Yeah, Dignitas, because I think like I definitely feel like the top 3 teams in Game Changers are pretty solid, right? But I know like the Gen G team didn't really do as well as they would have liked to. Dignitas also, you know, a little bit slumped from them. I wonder. Yeah, I mean, and the abruptness of this definitely. I don't know. I mean, it's Cloud9, so I would love to know like if there's like a buyout associated with this, like when they sign Katie, because it feels like, honestly, I don't think it's fair to compare like 2 players of different genders in this case. But Katie reminded me in that scene in the, you know, of like a kind of a tens player, right? Like statistically above and beyond the rest of the field. You would think that Cloud9, being the enterprising people, you know, they love money, people that they are in terms of how they run their teams, would stick a buyout on Katie like that, or just, you know, make it a little bit hard to for teams to acquire her so easily, considering that she was probably like one of the most prominent figures in you know, at least in women's Valorant that we'd seen so far.
I don't know where she go. I think it'll be nice to look at. I mean, like right now she's still playing a lot. She's still tweeting it a lot that she's playing some Valorant. So I think it could be good news for Katie. Even good news for Cloud9. Another win-win situation as if we're gonna run business-wise with Cloud9 and where Katie could potentially end up.
I think
All right.
I have a quick question actually, Uber, for you, because coming from Overwatch, I think you guys had more experience with like deeper rosters, like if you need 5 having 6, if you need 6 having 7, stuff like that, than in Counter-Strike, which has only been a brand new thing, and the same in Valorant EU. It's like non-existent more or less for Heretics. And I do wonder, when you sign somebody under those conditions, because if you're signed into a 5-man roster, buyouts are going to be they're going to be there 100%, because if you lose that player, your team falls apart, and that player has security because he's on the starting lineup. If there's 6, though, you're running the risk of being kind of cast aside. If they go, oh, we prefer this other one, it's almost like, I know it isn't, and it's not how it should really be looked at if you're signing onto this kind of project, but it's almost like a long-term trial, like in some aspects, or could end up being that way. So I wonder if it's like less likely, if you're going to sign a surplus of players, to assign them buyouts, or at least high ones. I don't know. That's a very weird area for me to contemplate.
Yeah, a great question. Orgs in Overwatch have just had a lot of them have handled it differently. Dallas feels a good example of a team that just like, I mean, I got blocked by Hastro like 3 years ago for just ripping into him for some of the signing decisions that he made, because it just didn't make any sense, because he signed players and he sat them on the bench for a year. And like, how do you feel? Like, it's nice to make money, but I don't think that like at the core of it, these pro players in especially if they come from developed regions, or like they have like relatively stable family situations, they're not doing it just for the money. So like, you can't just fucking sit these guys on the bench and then just pay them a salary and expect them to be satisfied with that.
Yeah.
And that was a problem with a lot of people. Like, ask AKM now, obviously playing on OG. He rode the pine over the rainbow. That guy was sat on that fucking bench for so long. And he was quite a good player, but I honestly think that Hastro signed him because he was French and he was popular, and that was it. There was no like rhyme or reason as to why he fit into that team. Hangzhou Spark are coming into the Overwatch League with, I want to say, a 12-player roster right now. I would wager that only 9 of them ever get to play at all this year.
12.
Stop.
Correct me if I'm
12
wrong.
players.
There are 6 players who play, right?
Yeah.
What?
You nailed it, Mitch.
What?
You nailed it. You're on the ball, mate. Yeah. So theoretically, these 6 players are a like scrim partner. Fuck off. Like, teams are going to scrim each other anyway. Like, you're not going to want to scrim the same 6 people after a while. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah. Weird. So there is an abundance of sort of extraneous players here, and they're all getting paid, right? So that's great. You know, that's if you are really desperately need money and you don't really have a competitive desire or whatever, then okay, maybe it's okay for you. But I don't know too many players that are satisfied with that, and that's why we always sort of speculate on this show.
Like Jeremy
I don't know
Lin
about
and the Toronto
I don't know
Raptors
about
still get a ring.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, brilliant. You know what I mean? I don't know. Well, yeah. Well, this is why it feels like we fucking talk about this every week. It's like one of those topics that's not really central to like Valorant in general, but always comes up. These teams just don't stick with these 6 players. And yeah, if you're a 6 player, if you're a bench player, you're fucking hoping that team courts you. You're hoping for a one opportunity to show yourself and then a chance to get out there, because it could also be politics as well. Like you mentioned it, Mitch. Maybe the C9 White preferred not playing with Katie. Maybe like she came in and had this fragment potential, but there was more chemistry the other way around, or maybe like there's a coachability question. Yeah, you probably just hope that you get picked up. Speaking of this, I mean, we do need to move on because we're already 45 minutes.
I was gonna say, if anything, sign 5 more players and then call them an academy team.
Oh, speaking of, that's a fucking great segue. T1 have just announced their academy team. No, you're not seeing things. Yes, the organizations cannot field the same, like 2 fucking rosters in like a Riot sanctioned tournament, but T1 have decided to build an academy roster. They put Unsung Sniper on here. Obviously, he was announced to their main roster, and you know, he maybe still be just acclimating to Valorant and might still be developing. I actually don't know what kind of player he's in Valorant at all. It would be disingenuous for me to like be mad that he's not on the main roster just based on what he did in Overwatch. Not a team, not a lot of names that I'm really familiar with here, but am I right in saying that like these guys would only be able to compete in like
Monthlies.
Street Gamers monthlies?
Yeah.
Where's the fucking return on investment in this project? Can I ask?
You're trying to build an academy roster. Okay, why? Well, because you want to sell that roster or sell players, right? Because you can't have them both competing at a tier 1 level. Can't happen. So, okay, those are the 2 things. Where the fuck are they supposed to show themselves off? Like, you've basically got 5 players and went, you cannot compete in the biggest tournaments. Unlucky. Like, okay, again, you know, as we just talked about, you're getting a salary. Fantastic. Well done. But you're not going to be able to establish yourself as a tier 1 player. You're going to have to be a god in those community tournaments, because it feels to me like when you look at a situation like that, you're motivating players. Don't give a fuck about your teammates. You play the best you can so that someone else is going to pick you up. And we see that in VCT and stuff. When players get dropped from their teams, they make mixes with other players so that they can hopefully put on a good performance and someone else will pick them up. For an org to do that, though, I don't see that as a benefit. I can't see it paying off at all in the long term.
I'll be honest. T1 are really starting to piss me off. they're just pissing me off. Like they're just doing like just, all I can see is like, you know, like, oh, have you guys seen Zoolander? Like when they're trying to like they're trying to hypnotize him in Zoolander, right? Mugatu, and like all he sees is like Mugatu spinning head and this music in the background. All I see is David Dennis's head fucking spinning around and just seeing like images of Unsung Sniper just like withering away on an academy team that can't compete, and I'm just relax, don't do it. Oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah, okay. So maybe they're hoping that this is something that they can build. So a couple things. It could be a farm team. They want to develop these players and maybe, you know, give them the chance to move up into the main roster. It could also be a team that they could sell as a package deal if they get some good results. I mean, they're not going to get to go up against good competition, are they? Because they're not going to play in VCTs. So fair enough. Or you know, they want a scrim partner. Maybe no one wants to fucking scrim the main T1 roster because they're shite. I don't know. Like maybe they, you know what I mean?
That was
fuck, man. I don't know. I'm just annoyed. So many of these decisions just don't make sense to me. And I'm not on the inside, so you know, they could all be like completely fucking realistic, and they could just be like throwing darts at a picture of my face on the back of their door, like this fucking guy.
But even then, right? You look at their academy team. They had like I'm trying to sort of be an advocate for some of these decisions and you know, work them through with you guys, but it's hard to see an end game with announcing an academy team that are male. I was gonna say, sorry, I muted myself on Discord, but like I if you look at the old T1 academy team as well, it's like Kurt that ended up playing with like Tymin. Then you have Rara that ended up playing with Dignitas, Rep Dignitas of that roster. But then you also have EU that joined NRG, and he's doing very well with NRG right now. So there is that possibility that with that T1 Academy team could be like a lower tier level of where Immortals was kind of at, where they were signing Asuna Dicey, selling him off, Kohler, signing him off, and having that revolving door as the main roster. While as for the T1 Academy team, then it's farming up, practicing with the main roster, and building up that experience to farm those players to maybe get more income and cash flow to maybe get star players for T1. So maybe it's a long term plan for T1 to finally build a super team in Valorant. But who knows for how long?
Yeah, the problem for me is that you're almost like sealing the fate of those players. And look, I can't blame them at all, because if you're in a position where you have no offers or this offer, you take that offer. Of course you do. You want the money and you want to be able to continue pursuing your passion. It's fair enough. But for T1, I just don't see the end game there that's worth having these guys. Like the main way that you would establish yourself is by playing in VCT, is by making it through those open qualifiers and establishing yourself as a team that can actually compete. Then an organization can pick you up, or maybe a team will pick you up as an individual if they see you playing well. But when you can't compete against top tier teams, they're never going to go, oh, that guy's really good. Like I know there was over in Counter-Strike a while back, the current FPX roster, or they were godsent when I knew them really well. I was like traveling around with them for a bit. We did a couple of the events, and I remember chatting with them. I was like, listen, dude, they picked up a guy called Madden. I had never heard of this guy ever in my life. I'd done all the open qualifiers and stuff for ESL, never fucking seen his name. And we were just in a bar one day, and I was like, dude, who the fuck are you? Like, how did they find you? How did Michael Lele end up going Madden? Like, where'd your name come from? Turns out they played in a qualifier against each other before they were even streamed games. So it was like really early stages. And he dropped like 50 kills against them. Then when they needed a new player, they were like, what about that dude that might have been cheating? Like, let's get him. He played. They were like, he's not cheating and he's really good. Okay. And he got picked up. You don't have that option now, which is probably one of the main ways to make a name for yourself now in Valorant. So at least they're getting a paycheck.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a good start. It's a good start no matter what.
No, it's not a good start, because you fucking cap your progress. You put a ceiling above your head, being like, well, can't get into VCT, so I guess we'll just stay here in the kiddie pool. I don't know. I patiently await.
I guess just for
I'm not
branding.
patient. I await to see more news about that one. We're going to keep moving very quickly, Mitch. I'm going to get roasted by Chaff. We don't talk about Dirk and the Magnum Dong. So very quickly, can you give us a rundown of some of Fnatic's roster changes? Because I'm going to get fucking... can't believe these guys are fucking ignoring the Fnatic roster changes. We don't have any graphics for that, so give us the 5-0.
All right, so Durka first of all went to the same school as Yampy, which was a fact that Sue was passing on to us, which is insane. Two of the best oppers are coming out of the same school. But so he's come into this roster. He's an insanely strong fragger. I'm not entirely sure for Fnatic why the changes they made were made. Like they look very strong right now. Don't get me wrong. This roster is very nice to look at. Just Magnum, very strong player as well. But at the same time, you know, the guys that they let go were solid as can be, Jack and Mo40. And I think that it's a new face. It's a new approach. They wanted they needed to change something, I guess, because the results weren't really in line. Like we were talking about Fnatic wanting to be a top 3 team, hands down. I think it's similar to what we've said about Liquid for a long time, which is that they're not a shit team. They're not a team that you're going to be like, oh, they don't have a chance of beating anybody. But if you're Liquid and you're looking at those results, you're like, what the fuck am I paying for? This is not my brand. So for Fnatic, it makes sense they're changing it over. They're insane. Like Durka, or as I mistakenly called him, Derek, but he's given me permission to call him that forever, so appreciate it. He could definitely be up there as one of the top 5 in Europe a couple of months from now. Like when I was watching him, he was blowing my mind with some of the jet plays he was making.
Gotcha. Well, yeah. So we'll keep an eye and see how Fnatic develop. Obviously, yeah, we're going to see some bunch of fresh memes come out of Europe now, I guess, with all this co-streaming happening. I wondered, like, one person, like, why the fuck is it? What's all these Pepes? Why? And I realized that it was because of the Pansy Hypoc stream. So thanks, guys. I mean, shit. Had I done that in Overwatch, I'd probably just get banned and ejected from the community. I'd have a Kotaku article written up immediately. I wouldn't be allowed in the Blizzard Arena. I wouldn't be allowed in 10 feet of Jeff Kaplan. So nice. That seems fun. I mean, yeah, I'm not jealous at all. Okay, we're going to talk about tens here because Sentinels and tens is a developing story. We're getting some conflicting information from, but what we can say is that they are going to be using tens through the end of Challengers finals. I assume it's all of the challenges because they didn't say Challengers 2 finals. Either way, it looks like this lease, this loan, so to speak, is being extended.
Yeah, they're gonna go until the end. I think at that point it's been confirmed, which is great. I mean, they're still trying to find their fifth player, right? So to have tens right now, they had some great results as we were talking before of tens getting banned, or like let's say if he was a Jet that had to get banned, he still plays a very great Reyna, as we saw in Icebox too. I think Sentinels with 10s continues to be that #1 team in North America, so it only makes sense. The only thing is how much it costs.
Yeah, you can imagine the
million.
buyout's pretty good.
5 million, by the way. 5 million.
Apparently.
5 million? That is, I mean, I don't know what these numbers are like. To be fair, Cloud9 operate a pretty successful League of Legends franchise, and I would say some of the numbers are probably informed by like the buyouts in League, which you could argue is maybe not reasonable considering where Valorant is as opposed to where League of Legends is. But maybe this is why Tens was saying that he wasn't we got to stop. We'll run this for you here anyway. I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but this is what Tens had to say before this announcement was made. So this is why I'm confused about this whole thing. Check it out.
So I think with my situation too, I think I'll only be playing with Sentinels again if I get acquired by them long term. I don't think they're looking for like a short term option. So if they can't acquire me, I think they'll probably go with someone else for qualifier too. But I know some talks are happening.
Right.
I get it now. I get it.
Okay.
5 million for 10s. Katie also left the roster probably for a buyout too, because they had to pay back all the money that they spent for the fucking Colossus team that they tried to build in CS:GO.
Oh no. Okay, listen. Just I hate that Henry G is getting shit because he revealed how much his players are getting paid because he wanted to set a precedent. Every other team saw that, like, oh, thanks for giving us a good idea of what we shouldn't pay our players, but we're not going to reveal our fucking players' salaries. Off you fucking go, Moody Colossus. I mean, that project was arguably a failed endeavor, which is a shame because I love Henry dearly.
Me too.
But motherfucker needs to go and get a pedicnos or something. You know what I mean? For fuck's sake, have a holiday. Mate. Look like you've been stuck inside for fucking months. You can only listen to Morrissey on repeat in a dark room for so many years before you start to lose your mind. But anyway, so the buyout. When I first heard, I think it was Fion, Tyler Erzberger, who initially tweeted 2 million, and I'm like, $2 million. That's a lot of money. Wow. For a player, mind you, that won't necessarily stay with your org. Like, you know, I understand Cloud9 would like to recoup their investment in Tens, but hasn't that already happened? Like, how much did they really spend on Tens in the first place? They got very fortunate by unearthing him, to get him to come across from Counter-Strike, right? How much
exactly. They got him for CS:GO. So, like, I don't think when he was signed into CS:GO, he was like a prodigy player. Like, he just first joined, was like, hey, here's a prodigy player, an up-and-comer, kind of like what Brax was in the iBuyPower days. He's going to be like the new face of Cloud9, kind of even like what Zeppa was after Tens kind of left into Valorant, and they brought in Zeppa into that roster. So I don't think that the salary was that high for Tens to get in the first place, and he kept them within CS to Valorant. So I don't know. I mean, stonks.
I think the thing that from their perspective as well, though, like, when you're risking capital on players again and again, and maybe they don't work out, and I think that Counter-Strike is a good example. Like, they've invested a lot of money, they didn't get the payback, so they really need to like maximize how much you're getting out of them. But 5 million's a lot if that's it. I heard around the place that maybe it was like that the exact quote was like up to 5 million, so maybe it's like below it somewhere, but even
4.7.
4, yeah. That's more reasonable. Let me get my wallet.
I got a couple. Got some spare change in the back pocket. I can make it up. You got change for a 20 or what? Fucking hell. Okay. I mean, if you're Sentinels, I mean, in fairness, you've done pretty well for yourself as an org. If you think about it, you had a Fortnite world champion. You know, so that's also pretty good. I think you're champions in Halo currently. You've had very good results in Valorant so far. I mean, if you think about how quickly this team has managed to grow, it was only a couple of years ago that this brand was incepted. It was Phoenix One, who rebranded, who took the day-to-day operations of the Los Angeles Gladiators and Overwatch League, and then they started developing sort of streamers and teams. So a very quick rise, but I don't, who knows what the fucking balance sheet looks like for this team, or how you can justify a $5 million investment. That basically means you would want to turn around and make 10 sign a fucking 10-year contract, you know, and then be like, well, we've got to make our money back on you somehow. So now you're indentured in servitude to us for basically eternity. You can sit in the seventh circle of hell chained to an ice pillar, and we're going to get our money out of you.
His value is pretty high as a streamer too, right? Like even if he's not competing, his stream viewers.
It's not super tangible though. How do you quantify? Because obviously you're not taking you're not taking any of the streamers' earnings. This is very rare. What Cloud9 do is you might be a part of their network, but what happens is your revenue goes through them and comes to you in full, but their balance sheets display that increase of revenue as a result of bringing you on board. So they don't get paid your stream revenue. You get it all, but they look like they get it, and then they pay it to you as a separate invoice. That's quite often how it works with these networks. That's why orgs sometimes sign streamers, because it's a boost to their analytics for sponsors, and it also, in the case of big streamers, it plumps the shit out of their balance sheets at the end of the day. It's pretty common if you're, I know this because I was part of the ESL network for ages. The problem was I'd left ESL, and then for 2 years I was still stuck on your fucking network on Twitch. So all of my revenue went to ESL, and I wasn't working for ESL anymore. Fuck, the person managing my partnership with ESL wasn't even there anymore. So all of my stream revenue was going to ESL, all of it. So I had to literally get on a very long email chain. I had to invoke the name of Joe Miller to fucking get my money. You know what I mean? So that's how it works, right? When you're signed to a network on Twitch. Anyway, so it's not, I don't know, it's pretty intangible, I think, how you sort of recoup this particular investment from a player. I just think that if it's 5 million, it's only going to get more if he keeps playing better. Like, this is how negotiation works. The better Tens plays, the more leverage Cloud9 have, because they're not in a hurry to sign him. Tens doesn't want to play with this current Cloud9 roster. They don't want him to play with the current Cloud9 roster. So Cloud9 hold all the cards, you know what I mean? Or in a game of Uno, none of them. So I don't know. I don't envy the Sentinels here, because they've been put in a difficult position, and the more they use Tens, the more expensive. Normally when you lease something, it gets cheaper to buy at the end. You know what I mean? This is not one of those situations.
I don't envy Tens, because he's the one that's stuck between all of this, right? Because he really wants to play with Sen, and he can. And if he can't play, and he cannot play with Cloud9, then he can't compete. He could still stream, but I think he really wants to. He's back at that drive to want to compete and win events, and that's the sucky part for him. He's stuck in between that whole business kind of disposal.
Give you the worst case scenario as well. Let's say he doesn't go with them. He ends up getting picked up by another team, or has to play going back. Then all of a sudden he's going to be in this position where he's like, if the results don't follow, if they're not making Masters, if they're not competing at a high level, he'll be like, if these fuckers that'll let me go over there, I'd be winning this shit. So it could ruin his mentality as well. Like, there's a lot that he's going through right now.
Exactly.
I feel like one of the worst things that could have happened to Sentinels was for them to win Masters with Tens. That might actually be the worst thing that could have happened.
I mean, that's why that's why the rumor is 5 mil now instead of 1, when he was fucking first loaned out the fucking play.
You know what? So, they did not make 4 million from winning Masters. I'll give you the big tip. So that is a net negative for the fucking org. This is what I'm trying to say. I don't know. That shit's wild. Oh no. We're gonna talk at some roster moves here, but in order to help us do so, because this next topic is multifaceted. It's nuanced. I think it's not actually, but we've brought in Hypoc here, of course. Also another prolific caster in the European Valorant scene. Obviously, previously storied professional in PUBG. Hypoc, thanks for joining us on the show, man.
Oh man.
Well, what an intro! Wow, I wasn't expecting that. It's,
the OVO hoodie.
Yeah, storied PUBG professional. You don't get many of them nowadays.
Hey, thank you for joining us, man. Yeah, that's what they pay me for, to say fancy shit. Look, man, we've got you here for a multitude of reasons, right? We're going to pick your brain a bunch about the European scene in Valorant later on, because frankly, we don't get to talk about that enough here. So you and Mitch are going to be able to combine your brains on that one. But first of all, I want to talk about an interesting move here, and one that you maybe know a bit about. So T1 have signed, as a member of their coaching staff, an individual called Stunner, who used to go by the name of Exco, I think. This player cheated during the online qualifiers in PUBG.
Against me.
What I understand, on against you. Okay,
I was competing at the time. Yeah, we played against him in a number of different events. Everybody knew he was fucking cheating until we finally got exposed.
Okay, right. So he has been picked up by T1. Now, is this in a PUBG capacity? He's been picked up, or in Valorant capacity? Like, what do they hire this guy to do?
No, it's the Valorant assistant coach, which again, I don't know well, keeping up with the structure behind the Valorant team with T1's a job in itself.
What
but,
fucking structure? bro?
Yeah, basically. But yeah, I think he went away and did some time in Apex and Fortnite, as that tragic video kind of alluded to.
You know what, Hypoc, we're going to run that video. So let's show
thank
everybody
God.
here some excerpts of the video between Stunner and White Yoda, or David Dennis here, as they sort of explain some of the decision making behind this.
We wanted everyone to understand that we were and are fully aware of Cody's history, including the ban that he received for having cheats installed on 2 separate accounts during his PUBG career. We want to be transparent and let you guys know a little bit about our process and talk to you about these concerns. Cody served this competitive ruling a number of years ago in 2018, but it hasn't really ever been publicly addressed. And we thought this would be a good opportunity to speak together to the community and to the fans of T1. Cody, why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened since that time and the opportunities that you missed out on? Just talk to me normally, like what happened? You got banned. Yeah, go for it.
After being dropped from FlyQuest, the incident evolved into screenshots being released, where Bluehole did an investigation into my accounts, and they found that I was using external programs prior to me ever being a professional player. And then I moved on from PUBG after that due to not being able to compete in PUBG for a year. And I worked on from that into Fortnite for a short period of time before Apex Legends was released. Once Apex Legends was released, I started competing in that game early on against many top teams and quickly competing against other signed teams in a online league. All my teammates knew. I let them know. It was brought up by multiple people multiple times. It was brought up by myself multiple times that I had this past. I let everybody know who I was in Apex, and a lot of the Apex players knew about my history, and they talked it over, and they decided to let me continue playing in the online league as long as I streamed with a hand cam on at all times. It is my biggest life regret because it did jeopardize one of the only things I want to do in life, which is continue my passion for esports. And I think it forever always will be my biggest regret that I've had, is doing what I did, and it cut a lot of my opportunities away, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, it was my own fault for being part of that incident.
At T1, we really believe in second chances. In my career in esports so far, I've worked with a lot of different players with these kinds of incidents in their past that have worked through the adversity and the challenge of that and have changed who they are as people and gone on to have wonderful careers. And I believe Cody is another person like that. I've worked with him for a number of months now, from trialing him as an analyst to fully stepping into his role as assistant coach. And I've learned to trust his quality of character as well as his skill and knowledge of the game. Adversity in one's life and in one's development is actually incredibly important. None of the great players in any kind of game, any kind of competition, get there without any significant adversity and failure. And Cody's had his fair share. And as he said, he understands that it was of his own making as well. And
It just
Okay, let's start from the top. So basically, you know what I love, guys, we're talking about this during the site, is that the look on David Dennis's face, it always looked like he was finding his shit out for the first time. Honestly, that's not the case, because he's tried to get this guy a job in T1 before. And we'll talk about that in a sec, but he's like, oh yeah, I was just waiting for his third eye to open up as he perceived, all the different fucking realities spreading out from this moment.
that is not the face of the man that's comfortable with the situation. He was literally like halfway through that, like, holy shit, like what?
Was this a mistake?
Like, are you for real? Like,
yeah, I mean that 11 million potential futures and only one where this is remotely acceptable. So first of all, I mean, we are inferring a lot of stuff from body language here, but old mate Stunner doesn't look. He obviously looks like he's not pleased to have to talk about this. I think obviously if you're T1, you have to get ahead of something like this. My understanding is that they're not necessarily getting ahead of this. I think Profi actually rang the alarm about this a little bit early on. So, Profi obviously mentions that, T1 picked up this guy and then he changed his name, as far as we can see.
No.
Right?
No. So it's just to give a bit of context. It's actually funny. The day the first announcement went out, I actually I sent out a Discord notification to we have like a private PUBG Discord for, like, I guess the North American pros and stuff.
Shadow Council.
basically. So it basically put out the announcement in there. A lot of people were talking about it and like, holy shit, that's Exco. Like a couple of people had kept up with him through Fortnite and Apex and whatnot. And everyone was just like, what the fuck? And a lot of that comes from the fact that there was never a statement made to any of the PUBG community. It was literally, he got banned, said nothing, changed his names on all his socials. And then like 3 months later or so, like somebody found him streaming Fortnite. Like that was literally what happened. There was never any statement from, I think it was with FlyQuest at the time of the ban.
Right.
There was never any statement from FlyQuest. It was just like, hey, yeah, this happened. So that in itself is, I mean, it kind of plays up to the fact that he couldn't even fucking look the camera in the eye when he was like, talking about it. It's like the biggest thing for me that was just, that video is just egregious at best. I think that's a flattering way of wording it, to be honest, because it didn't even start with saying, yo, sorry, by the way, sorry I fucked all those people out of, you know, online events, the biggest LAN in PUBG so far to date at the time. It's just on all fronts just deplorable, to be honest with you, to even put that video out from my point of view.
It felt like it was edited like a Ramson note. Like when you put like the big
Yeah.
letters and you do cutoffs and you write it down, because when you're actually watching this, the meme of David Dennis being an AI continues on because it's like jittering every like 5 words.
His face
it's
is
like,
glitching. It's like,
yeah, it's like, and then I believe in second chances. It was crazy, like how that was being edited the whole time. I was watching it. I was like, how many re-recordings
many
they did about
takes?
this, or like
How many
like
takes
what
did that?
happened
Yeah.
there?
it's like that video of Nigella Lawson that gets cut together to make her say dirty shit, right? It's like a compilation, like a collage of, oh, for fuck's sake.
Oh,
Okay, so look,
fuck.
I think we can all agree on the principle, right? That giving people second chances is important, right? But the nuance is really, has this person displayed contrition? Have they served an appropriate amount of, punishment for what they've done? Have they themselves taken steps to remedy what they have done or caused? And it seems like this guy is getting off really easy. And now that he sort of he floats around, he leaves PUBG without so much as an apology. He goes and he changes his name, gets involved in other esports, and now has fortuitously walked under the protective umbrella of David Dennis and T1. It seems like he's doing pretty well for himself.
Yeah, like, I mean, based on my understanding, which I didn't know this guy was until yesterday, he has not served any time. He left PUBG and immediately started competing in other fucking esports. So
he hasn't come back to kind of regain the trust of any of the players that he fucked over or any of his teammates or anything like that. It's like, yeah,
exactly.
New
He hasn't
group
done
of
that.
people, fresh start.
But he hasn't been punished. They're like, oh, I had to stream with my hand cam. Go fuck yourself, bro.
Dude.
Like, you cheated people out of their fucking job. And
Dude.
I had to show my teammates I wasn't cheating so they could see my mouse. Fuck off. No, you didn't serve any time for your punishment. And then you come into Valorant and do the same. And this is happening in the EU as well. People getting picked up to play on fucking teams who were coaches, who were cheating in fucking Counter-Strike 6 months ago. What the fuck is going on? If you're a cheater, fuck off. Leave. Get out. Go away. We don't want you.
The other thing is that video starts off as like, talk about the opportunities you missed out on. Hold the fucking phone. Are you serious? Like, the opportunities you missed out on. What about all the other people that you fucked out of opportunities? And until you got caught, you were still going to events. You were still competing for money. I mean, they were dog shit as soon as people started calling them out. And actually, they went to 2 lands and I think 3 lands actually came fucking dead last, but were gods online. Oh, funny that. But like to start that video off by saying, yeah, talk to me about all the, the hardship and the opportunities you missed out on.
Just talk to me like a person.
Start the fucking video by apologizing. What the fuck is wrong with you?
I had to play Apex instead of PUBG for a while, and I didn't really like that. So that kind of sucked.
Yeah, I had to play this game with no fall damage and arguably smoother mechanics. It was really fucking hard for me, bro.
Yeah, I just really wanted to be back winning all the events in PUBG. It was hard. I didn't have aimbot there.
Dude, the first video has footage from the LAN where it was just like after that LAN, everyone was like, okay, this guy's fucking cheating. Like, and in the T1 announcement video, the guy's talking about, yeah, I was successful in Battle Royale. Sorry, yeah, you were pretty successful in Battle Royale. Legitimately? No, but yeah, you were pretty successful.
Yeah, and Scoots brings up an interesting point in the chat is that he danced around he never said he got caught cheating. He used to call it an incident.
The
There was an
incident, yeah.
investigation.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunate incident I was involved in, and I shouldn't have been involved in an incident. Yeah, you shouldn't have fucked people over, possibly out of their jobs that they deserve to have, because they were fucking better than you piece of shit. Like, what the hell? What's going on?
This is and you know, as I said before, like T1 pissed me off. Like this decision. I mean, there was a tweet from one of his teammates in which he said,
Is this
"Look,
CeeLo?
was that? I don't know
Which tweet was it?
get it?
Yeah, Shadow. Here you go.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, he says, I can agree that he's got a great analytical mindset and I don't doubt his ability to coach. This is his teammate. As long as everyone is aware that he selfishly ruined careers, opportunities, and friendships in the already fragile world of esports, terms and conditions apply. That's 9 payments of $9.99 a month. Okay. So, yeah, even his teammate is like, I don't think that's enough that people know. I mean, okay. We have to discuss this. I only think because it seems like there is some shirking of ethics and there's some shirking of responsibility on behalf of this. And as people, especially esports is very adept at self-policing in general, right?
Absolutely.
Most people who have incurred these sort of penalties tend to go and do something else for a while. Not in esports in general. You know what I mean? No one wrote the book on an appropriate way to apologize. And unfortunately, I've seen every apology to any scandal I've ever seen is always met with, this is a shit apology. Doesn't matter what you write in your apology. It's always, it's never going to be enough. So let's just make that clear. I don't think there's an apology to anything that I've ever seen in esports where people have been like, you know what? I hate what you did, but that's a really good apology. So that don't pretend like there is a world where you can apologize and get a positive reaction at all. What's this I'm hearing in chat about cheaters and match fixers in European Valorant as well? Like it seems like this guy's not the only one. Mitch, come on. Come on.
So I couldn't fucking believe the cheek of XL. This is unbelievable. You have a guy who was banned a couple of months ago by ESIC for cheating in fucking Counter-Strike. He was a coach who was abusing a bug so he could see what the enemy team were doing. He's now fucking competing in our esport. Obviously, at the moment, they've done fuck all, so it's not really that big of a problem. But imagine this guy like competing at the highest level. Okay, yeah, he might not cheat, but it says enough about your moral character that you're willing to abuse a bug to give yourself a huge competitive advantage over people that are competing at the same level that you should respect and are possibly better than you. Maybe that's why you feel the need to cheat. It's disgusting. The same thing, and actually what's very similar to what we've just spoken about is a guy called Mechanogun, a human version of a rat. He cheated in 400 matches. 400! What? And then a month after his ban, I think it was less than a month, couple of weeks, he got picked up by Forza, not as a player, not as a coach, because I mean he's not allowed to be a coach, but instead he's mentoring the youth that they want to have on their roster. This guy,
yes, real role model.
Absolutely, because his character, and exactly as they said in that video, I think I have a good judge of character on him or whatever you said. Really, yeah, you really believe in the moral compass of a guy who fucking cheated and scammed people out of thousands of dollars of money, getting to events that they wanted to be to, and possibly ruin careers. You're gonna sit back and tell me, but I think his moral character is. How the fuck are you gonna let? I think letting them be a coach is so much worse because they're just gonna potentially corrupt the people that you're hiring to play the game. It's insane.
Because we believe strongly here at T1 about second chances. It's as simple as that, right? It's the all-encompassing cop-out. And the fact is, it's like, yeah, I've spent a couple of months with this guy. Cool. All right. How are we quantifying growth in the time he spent away after doing what he did? It's just literally like I was pissed when I saw the announcement. Then I was fucking livid when I saw the elaboration on it because that was just like almost worse than just giving no context. Like I would have rather have just been, yeah, okay, we've hired this guy, deal with it. Like, put up or shut up, sort of thing. Like just fucking embrace it. Because the second video for me is just a joke. It's the only way to describe it.
What I find so strange is that, David Dennis is not incorrect to say that adversity is important in shaping an individual's character. That is true. But what adversity is this guy really, really suffering? Like, the adversity of getting caught, the adversity of being implicated in a cheating scandal.
Like, imagine having the audacity to actually try and like play the victim card there and say like, yeah, this incident really affected me, blah, 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 but show not a single fucking shred of remorse for all the other people that you had. I mean, actually,
Yeah.
a lot of people disagree with this, but like, I come from a corporate finance background. I worked at a financial brokerage before I came back to esports, right? You commit fraud, you don't get another job 2 years down the line. Like, that's it. You go and do something else. Like, you're out of the fucking industry. Like, it's done. You fuck people out of money. You're not able to work in another industry or another job.
Jail?
Well, yeah, essentially, because that's what you're doing, right? You are fucking people out of money. Like, it's as black and white as that for me. But again, I'm old school. Like back in the Quake and Unreal Tournament days, you cheat, you're literally outed from the community. Like you're fucking done.
It's the same as
like,
COD 4, man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, now it's like this whole fucking. I'll be honest, like the Jarvis ban in Fortnite. It's like, yeah, phase the fuck up. You ain't put on a fucking public match, like, and people are cool with it. Like, when the hell did that happen? Like, when did that happen?
I think the thing that's important here, though, is like there's a big difference between cheating in like a ranked game, a casual game. That's bad. That is definitely bad. But if you and I believe those people should be able to get, like Yampy. Yampy's a great example. He didn't cheat competitively. He cheated potentially. Obviously, is a big thing about it. But it was a long time ago. He was a kid, and it was probably like a casual game, a ranked game, whatever. I can forgive that. I'm not pissed off. I'm not saying Yampy shouldn't be playing. However,
there's no damage is incurred to the other players necessarily, right? Like he's not fucking anyone out of career opportunities or money.
Exactly. He's not doing massive harm. But when you cheat in a competitive game, you're a piece of shit. I personally, I just would never let them back. But maybe we got to give him a little bit of time, a little bit of space, whatever. But under that argument, it has to be when somebody has served their time. ESIC has a current ban on Biggie, who's playing on XL. He has not served his time. His sentence is actually defined. It is literally written out. He has a sentence which he has not served. And people are going to go, oh, but he deserves a second chance. Maybe after the fucking sentence is served. This dude, he just went and started competing in other games. You were saying he was streaming Fortnite. He was playing Apex. He's doing all this shit. He hasn't served his fucking time. He hasn't learned from that. Maybe he's learned. I don't know. But he hasn't served his time. And that's the thing that really pisses me off. If you're going to do the crime, pay the fucking time, and then maybe you can get back into the game or whatever. We can talk about that later on. But to me, this guy hasn't got even a leg to stand on and saying, oh, I deserve forgiveness. Fuck off. You haven't served the time for what you did.
Yeah. I think there is a minimum, you know, no one's written a book on like how much time you should spend, but I think there's like, there should be a sense of just, you know, at least some contrition and stepping away. What do you think, Vance?
Good guy Vansilli hops in again. I know this is like bad press for T1, for Stunner, for David Dennis, but I think this shouldn't actually leak over to the actual roster as well, right? For Skadoodle Day, Spider, Automatic, and Curry. Like, let's make sure that this doesn't be like, oh, T1 lol cheaters as soon as like T1 has like a bad game or something like that too, right? I don't think this should like leak over onto all of those players. But one thing I like to say is XCO maybe should have changed his name to XCon, or now that we get this news, is definitely some Stunner news for T1.
I fucking hate you. I hate you so much.
I love you more than I ever did, Vansilli.
I actually despise you. Okay, so okay, here you go, Vince. So if you are a player, right, let's say like one of these players that didn't cheat, and you agree to play alongside someone knowing that they have this clouded past and have not acted with ethics, are you saying that you are not complicit in aiding this person in evading consequences they should be suffering for what they've done? You know what I mean? Like, are you trying to say that like his teammates are in no way culpable at all for this? For essentially agreeing to play along with them and assisting them in evading their punishment?
Wait, you're talking about his time in PUBG?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, you know, or for example, Biggie's teammates on Team XL. Like, Happy is on that team. Someone with an extremely extensive competitive pedigree.
Yeah.
Are you trying to tell me that these players are not complicit in assisting this person find a position, find a role, and find opportunities when they otherwise should be denied them?
Yeah,
I think he could kind of be like handcuffed in there too, though, right? I mean, if Happy's in a position where he needs to get an organization or wants to play, and it's like he's morally against it, but he needs to fucking put food on the table. That's the other dilemma that you're gonna have to be in the shoes of Happy.
Well,
was he aware of all this news? Hopefully he was, but
yeah, he definitely was.
At the same time, he's got to survive.
100%.
100%. And the thing is, there's 4 of those fuckers. They could very easily turn around and say, yeah, we're not playing with him. Get someone else. And as far as I understand, this roster negotiation was built up from the ground, right? It's not like they didn't pick up an existing team or anything like that. He wasn't thrust upon them by the organization. They could easily have turned around and said,
Cherry
I don't
picked.
feel comfortable with that. But instead, and look, I don't think they're villains. I don't think, like, I'm not going to say, oh, fuck you, happy for doing that, or any of that sort of stuff. But the thing is, they're ignoring something because it's easier, because it's just so much easier than having the conversation and going, and they're friends with them as well, I'm pretty sure. So it's hard to turn around and be like, dude, listen, you know, they're probably like, oh, we'll do you solid. Like, let's do it. I believe in you. You've learned. And maybe he has again, but we can't start making exceptions left, right, and center for everybody who's currently serving a ban and saying, hey, let's just let him off this one time. Because from what I'm seeing, more people are let off this one time than anyone's actually being fucking punished in the first place. It's insane. So I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me at all. I wouldn't hate on the players necessarily for it, but I think there is definitely a moral knock-on effect onto them for it.
Yeah. Also, we're talking about putting food on the table, but Happy's made at least $500,000 playing Counter-Strike in his
Yeah, it's
past.
not an
So I
issue,
don't
is
think
it?
he's really destitute. You know what I mean? Esports earnings lists his total at $495,236.90. So I
You
think
can't
it's
live
okay.
forever with that with today's economy, but
No, I mean, that is
6
true,
months
but
in
that's
LA.
in addition to his... okay, boys.
I didn't even get tens for that,
You're
bro.
all fucking ordering Postmates and milkshakes that don't arrive on time. I don't want to hear about it. Let's have a look at Frod. Frod weighed in on this on the T1 side of things. We've been jumping back between, but Frod says, this happened a while back. Can confirm that when the org/management forced me to trial interview him a long time ago. So this is the T1 have been trying to get this guy into the org. Neither he nor T1 told me about his past. Why was the detail kept from me? If you're fully aware of this guy's past, and David Dennis said, we are fully aware. We are fully aware of this. Why wouldn't you tell Frod, who is running the fucking team, who is coaching it, why wouldn't you tell him that you just put this guy in front of him? This is what makes me think this whole thing smells. It smells fishy as fuck, man. Because there's a reason that this is not the first time T1 have tried to put this guy in front of the roster or get him interviews or get him in there. Is there some sort of cronyism going on here that I'm not aware of? Is there a connection that we are just not seeing? Because it seems T1 really wanted to get this guy involved from an early point, and you could say it's because of his incredible galaxy gigabrain mind for the game, but somehow I fucking doubt that.
I mean, what that basically says to me is, like, of all the people that want to be involved in esports, the final candidate for this role is this guy, which I just find so hard to believe. Like, what was the recruiting process like? They go through 1,000 applicants, and they were like, do you know what? Actually, you know, everything aside, Stunner FPS is still the best choice. I don't see a reality where that's ever the conclusion there. And I mean, also, Lisa, didn't Frod say that his time there was like he felt as if management was dog shit anyway? Like, ethically, he felt that T1 was all over the place. I mean, it's for me, it just sets a terrible precedent. Because I think there's probably, I mean, who knows? But I would like to think that there's probably, you know, another former player from another esport, another discipline, CSGO, something like that. There's somebody better you can find for this job. Somebody with a decorated coaching experience or something like that than saying, yep, we trialed and interviewed extensively and we still decided on this guy.
Yep. I would love to pick Frod's brain. Maybe we get him on the show sometime. And
still
see what
trying
he
to,
can
man.
actually-
Still trying to.
Yeah.
Frod, if you're listening, get the fuck here, dude. Like, I think that probably is that layer where this whole weird storyline between Brax, AZK, and Frod leaving could have been, with potentially starting with Stunner from back then. Now, if this tweet came out.
Yeah. All right. Something to bear in mind. We're going to keep moving on here as well, because we've spent weeks. I mean, we had Ryan Central on here as well. We spent weeks sort of discussing what's going on in Europe, because you guys have some incredible games and they just weren't being cast. They weren't being covered, even, you know, to the extent of Freaks for You getting involved. A lot of like the play-ins or the sort of the qualifiers leading into challenges proper, we weren't getting to see. And obviously for a lot of people that was, that was missing out on a lot of really valuable content. They really wanted to see these teams. So for stage 2, week 2, EU challenges, or they've announced that there would be CoStreams. So Hypoc, you were involved in that. Ryan Central was there as well. Lothar and Zesht. So all of these, this is round of 64. So this is going back quite far. Are these all co-streams done by you guys individually, or is there any involvement here from Freaks for You, or is this purely just you guys doing your own thing?
Just a graphics package, honestly. And so we're given that, and I guess this is kind of the gray line, right? Is where it gets the Riot label on top of a broadcast going out, whatever channel that's on. My understanding is that the whole watch party thing and the co-stream has some different licensing conflicts in EU. But the problem is that, I mean, not allowing that, and then us still not broadcasting, from the start of the bracket to follow a team's journey. And actually, I mean, hopefully Mitch agrees with this. There was a load of teams I feel that we probably did an injustice by not covering, even though they didn't make it to the final stages, but we did an injustice by not following them on some of these upsets. I kept talking about at the start of the year. All I wanted to see was just like 8 different teams dick down G2, like at some point of the qualifiers, right? Because all of last year was
line them up.
It was boring, right? Up until first strike, but like we did some teams a real injustice by not showing any of those games. And yes, that's because they didn't make it to the final stage.
Sure.
Yeah. It was really good this time, actually, because one of the games that we covered was even an Italian team called Lucky Boys, and they were really nice to watch. I had never heard of them. As a matter of fact, I'd go so far as to say Tombas had never cast an Italian player. I'd cast the Vodafone National Italian Championship, so I had a little bit of an edge there. But outside of the national Italian tournament, I had never... Oh, it's a very small tournament. I had never... Point was, everyone in that was Italian. This is what I was getting at. It wasn't flexing the event. Other than that, I had never cast an Italian player in like 4 years in Counter-Strike. Never once even seen that flag up on HLTV. So it was really interesting then to get to see these guys. I didn't think they were going to do much. They played a really good game. And how many more teams like that have we missed over the last year, or over the last, since we started open qualifiers? So it was really good to get to have a look at these guys, to have more streams for people to drop by in. And Hypoc, I don't think anyone had quite the same production as you guys did. That was the strangest thing I've ever seen, but it one
of my proudest moments.
Can I ask an honest question here for you guys? Obviously, this is some of the graphical elements that, and this really, I mean, I love this. This is also why Pansy never ended up casting Overwatch, by the way, because she didn't want to have to give up the Pepes. I respect it. So obviously, you guys also, you had observers, which is fantastic as well. And obviously, Lauren sort of tweeted that observers make the show, and I tend to agree. Also, observing and casting at the same time. I mean, not in a game like Valorant. It's one of the...
Not for me.
It is fucked up.
I was trying that at 3 a.m. yesterday in like a regular 10-man with my friends, and it was fucking difficult. Lothar was doing it too, if I'm not mistaken. So it was hats to him to do that.
I mean, that is impressive to do that. Can I ask you guys honestly? My understanding is that this is for you guys' perspective purely a volunteer endeavor. Yeah, there's you're not getting paid to cover any of these games. Can you divulge that?
Wait, so who's that directed to, me or?
Yeah, so yourself and Mitch, or whoever's doing these like round of 64 streams, right? This is purely volunteer. It's not paid necessarily.
No. For this, we were paid to broadcast some of these up until the main broadcast went on. Again, it was down to us. Me and Lauren actually handled that. That was a fantastic one. Me and Lauren actually ended up offering, to get Sapphire on board, get Ito on board, and obviously Mel as well. Basically just passed on any payment we would have. And I even said on stream as well, any revenue earned through the stream was going to pay to put on a good production. Because me and Lauren talked about it the first day, and we were like, what do we do? Do we cast, produce, and observe ourselves? And I basically said to her, I was like, fuck that. There's no way. I'd rather just have like a no cam stream where we chill and interact with chat and do all the things that you probably miss out on like I guess a main broadcast feel, right? Which is why we went with day one was
people
pretty
don't
tame
want that half the time,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, day one we were pretty tame, but then day two everyone was just like, where's the Pepe's? Like, where's the memes? So like by day three it was just like out of control.
Yeah. So first of all, sorry, Mitch, you go. I want to hear.
No, I was going to say I think we were basically told that, like, obviously they wanted us to be available. They wanted to book us for those days so we wouldn't drop out to go do another event or anything like that. So that was where obviously we weren't being paid our full rates, but we were paid some compensation just to be around, and then obviously we got to do it on our channel. So beneficial to both parties.
Absolutely.
But then we were told, like, it's up to you what you guys want to do. So they gave us a lot of freedom, which was why Pepe's ended up on the stream. It was why we had the freedom to, if you wanted to, you could just keep the money for yourself, you know, do the broadcast solo, whatever, or you could get on your buddies, get some observing going. And Jonas, I mean, he was doing something different. This is really interesting stuff because he has the little screens up top as well. I loved it, man.
Yeah.
But that was it was a really interesting take on it because I've been involved in a lot of different aspects of a similar thing, like in Counter-Strike covering open qualifiers, but over there it's very much kind of, oh yeah, anyone can just jump on and do it. Whereas from what I understand, there's a lot of guidelines in Europe that have to be followed, so it's not as simple as them simply, and I think similar in NA, because they would leave themselves liable, so they have to have specific people, which is why only the VCT talent did at this time. I'd imagine in the future it will extend out to more streamers and all that sort of stuff. So that, and I think they used our stuff for clean feeds because there was also a ton of Spanish broadcasts, a ton of like Portuguese, like all the different languages had the rights obviously to rebroadcast ours into their language as well. So it was a really cool initiative.
Now, who was conducting this? This was Riot directly that were sort of conducting this, or was it Freaks? Who was?
I mean, kind of blurred. I think between
I don't know.
two.
I don't know who actually had the A for that happening.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Mitch, but this pretty much came down like fairly last minute. It was pretty much like 3 or 4 days before the first day of round of 7,000 or whatever we started with, and they basically said, "Do you want to do this? Are you available? It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday we're going to put on an extra broadcast." Because originally none of us were actually scheduled, I think, like over the weekend. So it was literally 3 days before. They literally sent out a Discord poll, and it was like, I even asked us, like, when do you need to know? It was like, end of day today.
Yeah.
So it was. I don't know who had the A for that. That came from Freaks, that message though. So
From what I understand, because I send a message consistently. I talk with some of the guys that write on a very blank basis. That I'm just gonna be like straight up. I'm gonna tell you stuff. You might already know this stuff, but I'm gonna say it just so it's said. And I remember at one point I messaged, I was like, dude, listen, like, NA has double E limbs, they have every game streamed, they have co-streaming, they have all this shit. Like, it just looks like nobody cares about EU. And they took that very to heart, because it was almost like, we are, like, everyone is really trying to make it work. But it's all the different guidelines that they have to go through. They gave me a couple of examples for like, this is allowed in France, but it's not allowed in Germany, but it's allowed here. And so they've got to like make sure that they're not liable for any broadcast that's going out. And trying to figure it out is apparently more difficult in Europe than it is in America, where I think the guidelines are fairly similar across states, whereas in Europe,
they're federalized.
Exactly.
Actually,
whereas
a
here
lot of that stuff.
we have just Irish law, UK law, so you almost need an expert on every single one. That just goes to hell pretty quickly. So I know this is something that they were working on for a long time, and that was a criticism that I had very heavily, was like, why the fuck don't we have this sort of stuff? But when I spoke to them, they said that they had wanted to do it, it's just figuring out how was tough.
I mean, I've come back to this because I was a huge fan of NA last year, and it was kind of depressing, really, when the first few, I guess, events started happening to you, and it was like invite only, and it was the same like 6 teams just regurgitated. And actually, at the time, it was like rosters were just being recycled and stuff. NA was like 6 months comfortably ahead of EU in terms of like the life cycle, right? Loads of orgs coming in, Nerd Street just doing like event after event and building actually a huge platform ahead of like First Strike, right? Before that even was happening, that like it was there, and it was way deeper than we had in EU. And on top of that, you know, watch party co-stream wise, it's like you think about it, it's we don't have like Myth, Ninja, we literally have Jonas and EU, right? Like who else would do a watch party and pull like 5K plus viewers on a stream in EU? It's the depth of the teams, and actually the I guess influencers, or you know, personalities, talent streamers, whatever you want to say behind it, that I don't think it's as quick and as easy fix, but by preventing it, you stop any growth. You don't know what it looks like, right, until you allow it.
I mean, yeah, this is really interesting. I think it's fascinating actually how Riot have been able to work a solution to this kind of setup. Sorry, my noise gate's picking up a bit. Yeah, I'm really impressed with Riot. I think we've been really hard on them on this show. I think we bring Ryan Central in, and we're just like we honestly just beat him down with like giving him shit about not being able to cast. The poor guy, he just fucking takes it like a champ. Obviously you saw there that he's been able to get involved in casting some of the stuff. Very buttoned up cast from Mr. Ryan Central. I appreciate the professionalism, but yes, I think the amount of memes that were spawned over the course of that weekend, obviously from the Hypoc Pansy stream, but also in general, was fantastic. It's such a huge step for stuff in Europe, and I just want to commend Riot. Not only their local crew in Europe, but also their global team for being able to make that happen, because it is a huge step forward. It represents them absolutely listening and absolutely prioritizing the strength of their product in Europe. And it looks like this is a solution, while in the back end looks very complicated to us. It looks like a really appropriate and sort of proportional solution. So yeah, congrats to you guys. That's great to obviously see you guys get involved in some of those games, and obviously opportunities being extended to guys like Ryan and Jonas. I guess it seems, is there a difference as far as you guys can tell me between co-streaming and casting? Because I would have thought that Jonas would prefer to co-stream or to have the co-stream vibe. Instead, he was actually was casting it as a caster would.
So straight away they said that anybody with any affiliation could not do a stream on their own channel of a team they're affiliated with, right? So Lothar affiliated with G2, Mitch obviously affiliated with Alliance, Jonas and Liquid, right? So that's kind of the difference there. Was again over the weekend, Sunday, Monday, whatever day it was, we followed Liquid. Jonas was doing a watch party of our community broadcast. Community broadcast. I don't know if that's the right word, even terminology for it, but I think that sets a clear kind of definitive line. It then becomes difficult, really, where we go beyond that, which is Jonas. I'm absolutely sure. I mean, the guy sits and streams 7 hours of Valorant and then stays up and watch parties NA whenever it happens because he can, right? And because actually that's how we already know people love to digest their competitive broadcast that way, right? They want to sit with Jonas and shoot the shit, basically.
Yes, they do, yeah.
So the problem then comes with, well, Liquid are playing off stream. Nobody sees it. You haven't got somebody like, again, it's just mind blowing to me that you wouldn't want somebody like Jonas in general watch partying something, but also actually when he's watching a Liquid game, right? And I actually think his viewership was up on what he usually gets, just doing the watch party of our stream.
Yeah. And the one of the things there, in terms of why they didn't have Jonas from the start do that, is because with the games that were going on, they wanted to have obviously as many streams as possible when you're in the round of 7 million, just to make sure that as many teams as possible get a spotlight. Then when we got to the end of it, it was like, okay, well, there's a couple of games going on, but for Liquid, obviously Jonas had gone without covering Liquid the whole time. His community is very much wanted to see him covering Liquid.
Yeah.
So then it made sense to, okay, we're gonna actually trial the watch party. We're gonna see how it works. Like if it messes with the viewership much, all this sort of stuff. Let's just trial it out here, like they did in NA the first time around. And from what I understand, it was a big success. I think they were very happy with how the whole weekend into Monday went in the watch party as well. I mean, if you look at the figures that Jonas got, it was definitely solid. And then obviously there was, I enjoyed clicking on Jonas's stream and just seeing his reaction to the Pepes as well. That was a beautiful thing. He was so confused at the start.
Incredible.
He was joining the stream to have fun too. I remember him chatting on Hypoc stream too when Panzer was covering it. And I even saw like I don't know, I think it was fun overall. It was just nice to see the coverage of the matches too, and like even the Reddit clips that came out on Reddit after when I think it was Jonas doing the watch party of Liquid playing, and then it's
JD uses
shock
lineup.
darts. Exactly. JD uses his lineups to break the lockdown of Killjoy in A Link, and he's like, "No, it's my lineup." So just like the reaction was genuine. I think this is super cool overall for the European scene. And I think it's going to help in terms of those storylines and stuff like that too. Maybe if you guys don't have those watch parties personalities right now, like let's say there's no PewDiePie that's going to be doing right now, like a Shroud equivalent.
It's
but
Spazzy
at
to do
least,
it.
Yeah, right. I still believe that this is going to be cool for the fans, at least of Valorant in Europe, to start building up with these and following these storylines of these teams that finally get coverage.
The thing that, and I guess this is a frustration on my part, it's like how cool early on was it to see like Coach Myth, those streams and stuff, and then the banter thrown back and forth between like
Myth,
the different
Ninja.
exactly in EU we just don't have that. Like we don't have somebody that could like stream a watch party for Fnatic or you know G2 do a watch party, and that was, I think you're going to credit a lot of that early growth, I guess, from just like people talking about it, and that visibility in NA was like Myth talking shit on Twitter about like Sentinels or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We missed that in EU.
Yeah,
You might have it. Bolster could kind of do it. Start it up.
I came up in Europe as a caster in the Overwatch scene, and we had the similar problems, right?
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
geographical as well. There wasn't like as many huge personalities in Europe. European viewership also tends to trend also towards Spanish or sort of Turkish or Eastern European viewers. So there's a language barrier there as well, and quite often, like, these people aren't incentivized to go to an English-speaking stream, A, because they can't understand English, or B, because they can't even type in their own language in the chat. Quite often, you see in these European chats that, like, other languages are discouraged from being used in that chat, which is just the kind of way it is. So it is the beautiful nature of the European Union, and it is what it is, right? But it's really nice to see them coming up with a tailor-made solution for themselves, something that works for Europe. And yeah, I guess a lot of the big influences, right, are from NA, but there's no reason why we can't see some cross pollination and see, like, plenty of these casters or big names like Jonas sort of lifting up the scene. So it's a thumbs up from me. Something before we go to the break, though, I want to discuss, which has come out recently, and you guys have to sort of maybe clue me in on this a little bit here, because LDM Esports, now they're from the LATAM region, I believe. They won Masters, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not getting so Latin America North. Essentially, they're not getting paid by their organization. Can somebody give me some sort of download on this? Because I've been changing diapers all week,
From what I read, and I'm quoting it right now, it's Misra VB. I think he was like manager or something like that for LDM. He goes, towards the end of the entire situation, he left. He simply got up and escaped. He left. I sent him messages, and they're taking PCs, electronics, and he just disappeared. So apparently, this guy, Jose Ezio Perez, which was like the Corner co-CEO, scammed like everybody from LDM, that even wrote out like the contract under like a falsified fraud name or something like that. So like anything that was signed from the players or whatnot does not
void.
Yeah, is fully void. So the guy could just up and leave and just fucking disappear. Here you go, Ezio all but disappeared. Rip. So yeah, that's the issue right now, and it's a team that fucking won Masters. It fucking sucks for them.
So he was in charge. We'll look at the TLDR. We'll keep this up. So Ezio was in charge of LDM Valorant. Didn't pay their salary, the gaming house, or the PCs. He signed all the contracts using fake identification. Misra was unaware of this since Ezio seemed to be financially capable / stable. He didn't get direct complaints for any of the larger payments, so he couldn't connect the dots. Ezio's disappeared. The analyst left the team as LFT due to not getting paid. The players got kicked out of the fucking gaming house and had the PCs taken away. So they are all staying with one of the players' parents, but now they can't play because listen, when we're talking about these players that may only be able to play because of the PCs that they're being supplied. I don't know what the situation is like in the Northern LATAM region, but these guys won Masters, right? So they won Masters. So presumably that prize money, they don't see any of that. Their salaries aren't being paid. This might, and it's just kind of hidden because of the region that is happening. This might be one of the biggest cases of fraud and sort of, it's not embezzlement really, but that I've ever seen in esports. And the magnitude of the damages incurred here by this Ezio fellow might be the greatest that I've ever seen.
What happened? It's pretty insane with payment, actually, because have they been paid for Masters? Is that dude gonna steal it, or what's happening there?
I haven't heard about that yet, so that's a detail that I don't know.
I think theoretically, no. I think, it was.
I was going to say, I would hope with esports payout timescales, then that could probably be prevented from going to him. Obviously, this is one that you can only hope that Riot would stop that as soon as the information comes out, unless the ball was already in motion, I guess.
I want to pull another tangent. Actually, that after reading Shockwave, that alias for that team for LDM, that was my second alias, and exactly how I wrote it when I started gaming online when I was 12. That's
and Shockwave's not getting paid. You didn't get paid by Pulse. It's all coming together. You know what I mean? That's wild. Still living with your mum. Shit. So what's actually happened here is that it's discussed. So we can bring up the tweet, I think, first. So there have been people that have noticed this, namely people from the North American region and want to help, which is great. I don't really know. I don't know if they know what the kind of dollar value is here, but Offline TV have announced a charity charity invitational. Now, is this related? This is related. Yes,
this is definitely separate.
Okay, it's separate, right?
So the offline TV have their charity event that's going to be going on this weekend.
Right.
That's actually going to be with like I think 5 teams overall, but I think we could stick with the other stories. So I think it's more with Hiko. That's going to be trying to do something to support LDM, which is great.
Gotcha. Let's have a look at the video of that. So obviously, yes, we'll talk a bit more about offline TV's tournament, but that is the charity tournament coming up. So definitely worth checking out. Offline TV, obviously huge names in sort of gaming content creation. But let's have a look at Hiko talking a little bit about this LDM situation because it is related.
There might be a possibility of some kind of a fundraiser or something coming up here. I don't know if you guys are aware, but the Latin America team, LDM, who won the first Masters in Latin America, are having a lot of problems with their org and finding money. So I'm trying to figure things out, but I want to try to help them. And maybe we can either do some kind of a fundraiser on stream, or maybe I'll just do it privately like myself. But I think it's a good opportunity for like the community to help people in need, especially when they're like literal champions of their region. I think
it's just insane to me that we're talking about a team who won Masters in the LATAM North region. They are living with one of their players' mothers because they got literally kicked out of the house that they were in and completely shafted. Obviously, it goes without saying that this is of great interest to Riot because they need to safeguard the integrity and safety, honestly, of the players that play the game, especially following their sanctioned tournament. So, what I understand is since then, we know that this team was signed by another org. So what we don't necessarily by Six Karma here, which is considered to be a reputable org, but I don't know that necessarily solves the fact that this team hasn't been paid their money. Now, Hypoc, you mentioned about like the Masters winnings might come to them via Six Karma anyway. So Hiko said he will sort of run this charity tournament if it's needed now. So we probably need to just, we're a little bit early in the situation. We still need to see if like there is even a necessity for that, or maybe Hiko will touch base with these players. But the point is that he was obviously willing to try and help these guys out. Obviously, it shouldn't happen at all. And I mean, it's dodgy, man. I'm sorry. Like some parts of the world are just dodgier than others when it comes to this stuff. I'm just saying.
It's crazy because first off, I want to give a huge shout out for Hiko for that one too. And I think this kind of like reminds me of what was happening. Like I think in like the CSGO days, 2012, 2013, maybe a year later. Like wasn't there like a Boom Academy or like a Argentinian team that was like kind of like trying to compete, but then the whole CSGO community got together with Fallen and everybody else to like put the money together.
LG and MIBR guys originally, right?
That's right. Right. So they ended up joining that MRBR team, if I'm not mistaken. So like he was supporting them going on so that they could actually compete and qualify later on into like the bigger stages. So I think this is like one of the great stories again that I feel that if Hiko wants to do it and start something right now, I'm pretty sure the community will get together and help them out too, because we're all about like, things to get shady for a lot of people, whether it's players or even casters themselves, but the community always sticks together and help each other out. So I think that's a positive out of it, but it's sad to see that it happens so many times still.
All right. And obviously talk about the offline TV charity event, which is a different story here. So this is great. Obviously, first of all, it's really cool. Firstly, to have such a huge, gigantic brand getting behind a cause like this. Also, Riot Games will be contributing to the donation pool as well, which is awesome. Vans, this is coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, exactly. It's coming up this weekend, actually. So on Saturday and Sunday. So the details that I've gotten to is basically it's going to be 5 teams of friends from the offline TV. So there's going to be a bunch of teams playing together, and all the proceeds that's going to be built up basically over the weekend with what Riot's adding is it builds up a prize pool where like 70%, I think, for first place could go into the charity of choice. Second place goes into a lower percentage, and it's for a charity of their liking. So it could be for Doctors Without Borders or everything that's happening around right now for charity that people want to support. It's all in there, which is a really cool thing to do too.
Yeah, that's kind of dope, and obviously, it looks like it promises to be a pretty fun show as well, especially based on the people that are involved in it. Oh, do we know any of the teams that are competing in it?
I don't know yet. I was looking at it, so I got confirmation. It's like 14% for first place, 30%. So I got that prize pool going, but we're not sure of the names yet. But you can see the images on there, right? So it has like the face, like the banner that we saw before has faces of like the legendary offline TV crew. that's going to be together. So I'm pretty sure like Pokemon's going to be part of it as well, right? So
They should hire you, Vance, to be part of it. That's what I think they should.
They should. Hopefully, we'll see.
All right. So good on. Thanks to Offline TV, obviously, for getting involved in this. This seems like it's going to be a ton of fun. I can't wait. 17th and 18th. So coming up in a few days. Yay for charity. Hey, Hypoc, man, it's been great to have you on the show, dude. Thank you for giving us some really valuable insight, I think, just to what's going on in Europe right now, man. And we can't wait to see more of your co-stream work and casting work coming out of Europe, dude. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on again.
A pleasure, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to dig into the nuts and bolts of VCT. First, we'll talk about EU, then NA, then maybe EU again. Stick around. We get into the real meat and potatoes of this show. Anyone hungry? Just me? Okay, we'll see you in a second.
Man. Starving.
Welcome back, everybody, to VALORANTing, the podcast, the show that is always accompanied by a really pleasant wood fire smell. That's all the bridges that we burn on our way to find the truth. Welcome back after the break here. We've got plenty of results to cover here. A little bit less of the discussion around the social issues affecting Valorant at large and more about exactly what went down over the weekend. So let's start with VCT EU. They're already into stage 2. These motherfuckers are crazy fast. And like we mentioned before, Mitch, from the round of 64 onward, we actually had these games were able to be covered, which is obviously pretty sweet. So we got to see a little bit more of it than usual. Seeing here, obviously, this is a qualification run, if I'm not mistaken. Is this the?
This is stage
players?
2, week 1.
Oh, okay, sorry, we're gonna go back. So we're going, So week. So challenges 1. Sorry. All right, I'm sorted out now. Obviously, FPX make their way all the way through here. Opportunists, obviously, for those that aren't aware, are Defuse, so rebranded, and they go pretty well here in this lower side.
Yeah, man, they almost took FPX down. They really did. And it was at that stage I was ready to turn around after seeing the guild game as well and say, first of all, double elim, please. But opportunists, they're probably in that bracket at least. I think they were the second best team, hands down. And it's I think if opportunists came up against guild don't qualify. That's almost a certainty in my mind because they're so clean right now, man. Like they're a team that have barely been together that long. Like they stuck with it. They had a couple of bad results, didn't disperse. I know there was conversations around some of the players potentially looking into other options, and then they committed to it. And that was really nice to see because this is a team that has not only tactical depth, but they have some of the most impressive stats in the game right now. Like, I found it funny when I was looking through the stat sheets and seeing that they play from behind a lot. Like when we think of opportunists, we think of clutch potential because so many of these players, they clutch out rounds that they just absolutely shouldn't. But when you look at the stats, they have to because they end up losing a lot of the opening duels, and yet they still always answer back. They're an explosive team, but they can slow it down as well. I love watching this team play. But FPX, they've always been the gods, right? They've always been the ones that were hot on the heels of G2, but they were playing the long game, as Angel always told us. He's not looking to win the biggest tournaments on day 1 of Valorant. He was worried about making the team that could compete a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, and that's exactly what he's built here. First team to qualify and then taking top seed out of it. Yeah,
I mean, Angel's so interesting. He plays what? In that series, he plays Astra when Shadow plays Breach at one point, right?
Yeah, man.
Shadow was normally playing Astra, but then Angel plays Astra and then plays Phoenix there on Haven, which is such a weird combination of agents to play. Nothing about Angel is standard.
Yeah, that's the thing I love about Angel, though. He's so willing to just do whatever he needs to for his team. Like, we saw him play Viper, we've seen Reyna, we've seen Phoenix, we've seen Astra. That's in the last 2 games that they've played right up to the end of that leg of VCT. So in this team, and Angel was one of the first people to say it when we asked him very early on, obviously with the concept back then, before we even had the likes of Reyna in the game, we asked him, what do you think? Like, can you just play one agent? Can you be a jet main with no other agent in your back pocket? And he said, absolutely not. You know, this game is going to evolve to a point where some of these agents might be irrelevant, where some of the others are going to be just too strong for you to deny playing them. And he was the first advocate for, I want a team where everybody can play multiple roles, not only just because it could be necessary for a meta game, but also because then you can just throw your opponents completely off guard if your lineups are changing game to game. And we've seen exactly the benefit of that coming throughout that leg of VCT.
And you kind of mentioned it already, Mitch, that final was pretty fucking disappointing. You know, seeing Guild obviously go up against FPX. Obviously, it's not uncommon to see our semifinals get played like, you know, look better than the grand finals. But I mean, how much is there to really say about that? Zipan drops 33 kills on Icebox on Reyna, absolutely ruining Guild. Guild Do they even get above 10 rounds? No. What they lose 13-9, 13-5, 13-4.
Yep.
Yikes.
It was
Not much
bad.
to say here, huh?
Yeah, it was bad. Like on Icebox, we're like, okay, well, you know what? Guild were obviously uncomfortable. It's a strong pick for FPX. They didn't have a ban. It can't be worse than that because Guild are so good on split. And then it was 13-4. Yeah, it was disappointing for sure. And I think it only goes further to the narrative I'm going to be just droning on about all day long is we need double elim. I think we saw it this week as well with some big teams going out. GT versus Heretics is the main one. I don't mean any disrespect to C Calling, but I don't know who they are. And Heretics are possibly the second best team up there in the top 4, top 5 at least. And they're now out of the running for Masters, which is insane. And it's because we don't have double elim for the same reason that Guild qualified over Opportunists, because due to the seeding, FPX had to play against Opportunists. That would have been a sick grand final, and they would have done a much better job than Guild. Do I think Guild don't deserve Masters or whatever? No, absolutely not. They're a really good team in Challengers finals. It'll be interesting seeing them, and I think they probably would have made it through this week anyways. But I still think Opportunists should have been on top of that pile.
Sure. I mean, this is also like, I mean, after watching Ascend sort of play in Masters and sort of seeing that team very quickly just sort of provide a dominant performance, I'm so shocked to see them go out so early against NIP here, who then lose to Guild. It's like the poop rolling down the hill of it, because Guild looked so bad in the final, but Guild beat NIP, who beat Ascend. So it seems like what's going on in Europe right now? Is it just with Astra being involved, it's more volatile? I mean, even Alliance. So your team struggles in that first game against Guild.
Yeah, no. The thing is, like, when you look at how the depth of teams within Europe right now, there's so much that can surprise you. And I think for Guild, they're a very unique team that play much more aggressive in the opening rounds. Like, to contain Yassine. Yassine is a man who has gone on record and basically said that he makes decisions not because of, tactical depth or what makes sense in the moment or weighing up his options. It's his chakra. Now, that pissed me off, but it works. That's the thing. Like, it genuinely works. He's so hard to predict, and when he gets in a flow, you have a task on your hands containing him. You look at Ascend. Obviously, CNED is an animal, and at the very start of VCT, I've said it a few times on stream that I referred to this team when we first saw them on stream. Again, because we didn't have open qualifier streams, so I'd never seen them play. I called them CNED and 4 dudes, because that's what I thought they were. I thought, if CNED is a bad game, they've lost. Like, it's easy. And yet, they actually turned up and played some of the most strategic gameplay that we've seen. They were really nice. They used CNEDs up aggressively, but they have the support there, and I think that was shown by the fact that Cole Dementa, despite being on a team with CNED, who they close out most rounds pretty cleanly, he actually had the most, and he's only playing Sova as well, so it's not like a breach. He has the most assists per round in the entirety of VCT. That's running through last week and this week. I think it was like 0.4 per round, which was insane. Obviously G2 now with a fresh face, they're looking unbelievable. We've talked about Opportunists, we've talked about FPX. Heretics, they're coming off their 6-man roster now. They're gone back to 5 with, I believe. I don't think that was a choice, though, like we would expect, right? You would say, like, oh, yeah, because 6-man rosters, like the conversation we had earlier. It's like it was more health issues with Nisao. Yeah, he needed to go for family reasons. So that's fair enough. They've made that decision. Maybe they'll return to it later on. You have Liquid starting to look a whole lot better. Like, it is insanely difficult to be in European Valorant right now. I think you've almost got like FPX as the #1 team and everyone else just fighting it out for those other slots. Like NIP would easily have been my my top 3, and yet they underperformed again.
I mean, that region it's getting easier to watch that region as well. I can't wait to track some of these sort of teams as that, because remember, we'll talk about it after the NA stuff as well. But we're in Challengers 2 already in EU, so that's happening. It's a whole other story developing. But let's move on to NA here, because obviously that was where a lot of the action was on this side of the pond over this weekend. Here, obviously, we had our Challengers 1 finals, our double elimination. I bet you jelly, where we saw 100 Thieves make their run all the way through. But let's. Ooh. Yeah, exactly.
Isn't it beautiful?
Lower bracket? What's that? What does that mean?
Right, and that's, I mean, first thing that stands out to me, for the first time, I think, in a double elimination bracket, XSET actually win their first matchup and don't have to go down to the lower bracket until that second round where they take on Immortals. But let's talk about Team Envy here, because we're expecting, I think, coming into this Vansilli, Team Envy to be in that grand final. They look, I mean, decent against version 1. They have a couple of issues here, but really that last map, that Ascent map, goes off without a hitch, so to speak. We're seeing plenty of the Mame Astra being used here, FNS on the Killjoy on this particular map. Victor doing Victor things. Glad they dropped glad they dropped food and picked him up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if actually Envy wanted to do a 6-man roster, that's what I tweeted out before. I think it'll be nice if they actually have Victor as a trial, and then or just sign him in and then just plug and play Victor and Food from map to map.
Yeah, it should be, 6-man roster, right? With Victor and Food just rotating.
It would look so good. But overall, for Envy, I did like what I see from them, right? Bringing the Astra out with Mummy opping, that worked pretty well. But I think when you're looking later on throughout the brackets, you had Mummy playing back as an Omen, and then you had Victor literally playing as Sky. So they tried this double initiator between Victor and Crashies, as Crashies, of course, is going to continue as a Silva. So what I like about this for Envy is, despite them losing to Xset later on in the lower brackets, they still have some great elements into their roster that probably going into the close qualifiers or Challengers 2 or the NA regionals, rather, they are going to have something like a composition of a double initiator with a Mummy as a Astra. I think that will look pretty good. I think when we're trying to theory craft on the meta of what it's going to look like in the future with the new patches in 2.0.6, I think having a double initiator with an Astra and a Viper is going to be pretty damn crazy as your 5th agent being a Raze. I think it's going to bring in a lot of good compositions right now, and I feel that it was like testing grounds for Envy versus Xset. But I definitely don't want to take anything away from Xset with that.
No, I mean, Hastro is so cringe. He tweeted like, "Wow, we were just trying stuff out. Yeah, GG's done it these." I'm like, oh, shut the fuck up. Obviously, I saw Victor tweet, "Hawk out," and I'm like, before the game, I'm like, "Oh fuck, no, really? Why, dude? No, come on." And looked medium. It looked medium on that map. They lost obviously 13-9 on Ascent when they started bringing the.
Yeah, exactly. He was playing Sky as if he was playing Phoenix, pretty much, because he was hawking out and trying to peek out after and trying to go like the strong legs waste from time to time too, like when you're just trying to throw the hawk and try to run behind it to get a couple of kills, which we saw. I think it was Soulcast that does it right now, right? If I'm not mistaken, as Sky on certain maps too on Haven that I saw a clip of. So I don't know. They're testing out things. It's working out. I think people were already at pitchforks that they lost to Xset, that they should change rosters. Like, bros, they've qualified. Like, let's give him a chance.
If you see one of my creatures, it's a good thing, all right? You're fucking brilliant. I mean, yeah. So it's pretty obvious that they were trying stuff out. You know what I mean? And that's fine. That's a bit of a whatever to me. Let's talk about some of the other teams though, because Immortals, as we'll go through this bracket if we can. So Immortals take on Anbox in the lower bracket after Immortals lose to C9 Blue here. This series was one I only got to catch a glimpse of, but really close. You know, Anbox obviously with Marta on this roster and Vice recently having joined, they look pretty damn good.
Correctly. They had to find some replacements to Poach and to Android, and they lost a lot of firepower and big brains into that too, right? So bringing Vice, who's had his experience as an IGL for Cloud9 before, probably is going to be in this roster helping things out. And then Mata playing as a Phoenix or a Duelist, I think even Raze at some point, where I think he even played as a Silva before when he was trying out with LG, if I'm not mistaken. So they're definitely a team that are trying a lot of things, a lot of different things. We saw Breach come out of Vice 2 on Split. And it was kind of like a plug and play, because you lose Android. Who do you want to put in as a Raze now for Android? It was a job for somebody else to do it. Didn't work out. It was Mata going in. It was 13-11. I mean, it's good results. It's decent results. I thought in my eyes that they lost a lot of firepower by losing Android and losing Poach to this roster, but to still bring Immortals to the last round of regulations on these two maps is quite good, because Immortals, we talked about them in the open qualifiers to the closed qualifiers. To have Rossi play instead of Nature and still look very good and still do very well as Astra, for example, too.
Yeah,
exactly. Like the roster still looks very good for Immortals. So I don't think it's a team that fell short from a roster change. Again, I think it's very similar to what Mitch is saying, is like a lot of these teams are starting to catch up. You have one team that's fairly dominant in North America for me, which is like Sentinels, and then anybody else in there is like fighting for that spot.
Huge fan of seeing some of these new inclusions in these rosters actually finding so much success alongside their teams. On that note, Cloud9 Blue eventually falls to the lower bracket. They take on a version 1 who's looking hungry and is looking better than ever here. Obviously, we get to keep sort of getting an idea of what's Cloud9 Blue's providing us here. I think having seen this series, Penny looks extremely good in early rounds. I think like across the whole series, Penny is like +4 and first kill, first death here.
Yeah.
What I did find though is that when player 1 got pressured on some sites, some of those off sites, sort of in the later maps, he struggled. He gave up a few of those first kills, and yeah, it looked like version 1 really channeled some really potent aggression across this series though.
I think just this matchup or how version 1 plays this map in general too, people are starting to like they counter strat each other quite well, because whenever you're gonna put Cypher stuff onto C side, you're gonna leave C side open, and then you're just seeing hits towards C side. A lot of these fights in general are happening towards C when you're playing against version 1. The thing is, for me, is I felt like C9 Blue had pretty much the series in hand until like this fucking amazing clutch from Effies on that 3 versus 1 on C side. It was like there was 6 seconds left into the round. They run into the C site to try to plant. You had one guy in the back there, I forgot who he was, but he really needed to get the frag, didn't get it. And then it came down to like a plant, and then Effie's just clutching a 3 versus 1, and then they just get the series in the end to qualify. I think that was fucking super sick to see from version 1. The how they came about from just starting to get the upset onto FaZe and then getting here. From that clutch, I think they just caught up and won the rest of the series. So I think after we interviewed Zelsis was like, we felt like we won the game, and it wouldn't have happened if Effie's didn't clutch at 3 versus 1. And it was super nice, like a very nice matchup.
Yeah. I mean, version 1, obviously, they eventually fall to XSET in a very close series. In fact, that series was, I mean, a lot of fun. I think the problem was that, the losing 13-3 on split really just kind of takes the wind out of version 1 sales there. So it could be a problem with map pool. It could be just they couldn't adapt to, I think, what XSET were doing. And so that looked pretty average there. Envy go up against 100 Thieves in the upper bracket final now. And we're thinking, okay, this could happen twice, because we could see whatever team that loses drop down and end up going again. What's your take on this series in general? Because this was, I'm not really impressed with Envy here. I mean, they get 3 rounds on Bind, 4 rounds on Haven, of all things. This looks really, really underwhelming.
Yeah, I think overall it's just seeing how 100 Thieves look pretty good too, though. I think as much as Envy looked underwhelming for example, when we saw Guild really underperform versus FPX, I don't think it's a big deal for them, because even in the tweets came out from FNS saying, oh, well, we got to play for seedings again, and we were very vocal to talk to Riot to say we don't really want to play for seedings at that point. If you qualify, I think, Mitch, for you guys in Europe, when you're looking at Masters 1s or even First Strike, as soon as you made it into the top 4, your bracket ended there, and then it was random seeding going into Masters, if I'm not mistaken, or First Strike, right?
No, we played, so going into First Strike back then, I can't even remember. I can't remember back that far. I know currently what we're doing is we're playing for seeding. Okay. Like whenever we get our qualified teams into Challengers Finals, which is top 8, and then there's one extra game when you make top 8. But I'll tell you, from a team perspective, like when we were talking about it, we were like, okay, the game versus Liquid, we want to come in 100% prepared. Obviously, we didn't win that, but the idea of the second game doesn't even come into it. It's like we're going to practice more than we normally would. Like if we have 2 BO3s, we'll do 1 warm-up game and go straight into BO3s. Now we were like, let's do 2, maybe 3, go in, win the first series, and who gives a shit if we lose the second one? If we're tired or whatever, I couldn't give a fuck. Like, because it doesn't matter.
I think that's what it is too. I felt that's what probably happened with Envy at that point. But again, not to discredit onto XSET or discredit onto 100 Thieves, because 100 Thieves looked like they were pretty much on point mechanically. Just looking at 100 Thieves, Ethan switching back over to or switching over from a Omen to a Sage has been looking very good in terms of how he's placing his abilities, how he's placing those one-way walls, how he's boosting himself for his skills, and how crisp he is mechanically in this game. We've talked that out before when he first joined 100 Thieves to say, look, it doesn't look too great in terms of them working their abilities together, but Ethan still looks somebody that could frag out. Now he frags out, and they have the chemistry, and they have the synergy to move forward. I think they're probably the team that could potentially upset Sentinels if it has to come down to that into a grand finals, into the NA regionals.
And one of the things, actually, when we talk about that, just to quickly build on the seeding thing, is because it's only, I don't know how it is in NA, actually, I'm not 100% well versed in EU. It's 2 teams go through to Challengers Finals. I think you guys have more, right?
Yeah, we have 4.
Obviously, because we have we have EMEA as opposed to just EU, so we'll have the
your region has to come together again.
Exactly.
To
you're talking about that. Yeah. I think we have 2 in NA for regional finals that goes into Masters 2.
The thing that makes it matter even less about like playing a BO3 for seeding, which is really wild. You could random seed it, or you could just do BO1.
Yeah.
Like Hal, just do a BO1.
Yeah.
So everyone goes home
group stage,
early, get your dinner. Because the thing is, you have to play everybody anyways. The only way you avoid them is if they're on the other side of the bracket, and beating them doesn't necessarily determine that. So it's always very weird to me that you're that we do that. It seems like just a waste of time, really.
It feels like G2, for example, beating Vitality in a seeding match, it gives them the matchup against Fnatic instead of a potential matchup against Ascend, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like you guys could shave off, you could go down to a best of one for seeding and then use that extra time to have a lower bracket, you know what I mean? And that would go a long way towards giving you sort of double elite.
Yeah, but the thing is,
it's a little bit transitive, right?
The thing is, and here's the point, right? Okay, so Fnatic will look at that as we lost, so like, had we have won, maybe we wouldn't play Ascend, or we wouldn't play G2. You'll still have to play Ascend in the semifinals anyways.
That's
like, you still have to beat them to get there. So it doesn't feel very important to the players, which is why I think we get so many kind of upset results or way closer results than we would expect when it goes to seeding matches, because it's not even that they're not taking that game as seriously. It's that they're not taking the day as seriously. They don't think of that
you're not
game
incentivized.
they plan.
Yeah.
And then, so the seeding gets undermined because you're not as incentivized to win those games anyway, because they're fucking exhausting.
Well, actually,
so then the seeding doesn't even really, it's not even legitimate seeding really if teams don't approach it the same way as the rest of the tournament.
I even think that the crazy part, though, because I don't know about this one, I'm pretty sure the last VCTs, though, there's a prize pool attached to that, right? So there is some sort of incentive for teams to actually seed better and win monies, right? It's like 50K or something like that in the prize pool. So it's actually not so bad. But at that level right now for those players, it's like, we don't really mind not making it to like the number one to get that prize pool. It's just we want to make it to Masters. We want to get that title. They want the prestige and the name behind that. So losing into, I guess, the seeding matches is not a big deal, but they have to look at it from the longer run. It could potentially be a very big deal going into the North American regionals, because Sentinels hasn't qualified yet. Gen G hasn't qualified yet. TSM hasn't qualified yet. There's so many teams right now that could make it into close qualifiers too, where eventually when they're going to start matching face-to-face in the NA regionals, you might have a potential like first round NV and Sentinels maybe in some crazy scenario right now in those abilities of what you can have in terms of the face-offs to just lose in the first round and have to battle back in the lower brackets already. So I think you have to look at it from the longer run and really accept that way and really see it that way as a player more than, oh no, it's just a tiring schedule.
All right, let's crack on here and talk about the final game in the VCT NA challenges, which is 100 Thieves versus XSET. Ended up being an incredible series, actually an incredible series. Maybe you don't expect to see that from these two teams. Some stats for me that I think were really sort of stood out. Over the course of the series, BCJ is incredible at these first kills. 17 first kills to 7 first deaths. On the map of Ascent, we did go 7 first kills, 0 first deaths. I mean, this team has really developed. And we always talked about XSET fans as like a unit. Team that is just unbelievably good at putting their retakes together very quickly because they seem to be on the same page. Their calling is so streamlined. What a roster this has developed into.
Yeah, this is what I found. Like we're talking about a unit. That's why the first map here was pretty funny for me too, because they were literally running as a unit. If it was towards B, 5-man doesn't work, run back towards A, 5-man, try to sell a fake and whatever. Or like they weren't selling fakes, rather. There was nobody lurking. They were just working as a unit, as a team, and play the trade-offs. And that is probably something that XSET kind of coined for me when I was watching them play before, because when I watched them play towards like the earlier days of like Haven, it's just like, oh, they're gonna work as a group and try to execute as a group. And it was like kind of like slow to watch. So that's why, for me, I felt like we weren't giving enough credit to XSET, because, yes, they're a team that are able to qualify, and then as soon as you get into the first rounders, the second rounders, it's over for them, and that's it. It's kind of like you're watching NHL, and you have a team that's always making it to the playoffs, but never make it further into the Stanley Cup playoffs, right? But they're still always going to be there into the top 8, making into the Stanley Cup, whatever, right? So right now, for them to get this upset, to get into the grand finals, to beat Envy, I think is a great feat that they continue to improve. And not only that BCJ is like a great Silva right now that is probably up there with me with Gangsta and Hiko, and the amount of kills that he's able to get with his Hunter's Fury is also, as you mentioned, we did, how deep his agent pool is as well. So when you're talking about underrated players in Sentinels, and everybody always mentions Sick right now because he's playing on a different agent on different rules, we did is now a Viper, Astra, Omen, a Phoenix player. Like, he's actually developing a lot right now to be able to assist this team for Exit. And also with Sicko, sorry, as their coach, has added a lot of depth into their strategy too, where again, when Weed is going to play Astra on a certain map on Haven, it's going to be Aaron that's going to play Astra on Bind. So their their agent pool for the other players are pretty deep too. So Exet is looking for a team that's going to start upsetting a lot later on in the future.
Sorry.
Oh, no, I'm
Sorry,
just going to say, I'm going to get, because I don't typically have much to add to the NA stuff, because obviously you boys far greater in expertise in this region than I would be. But I know I'm going to get into trouble if I don't mention BCJ as my boy from back in Battalion. I used to watch this guy all the time over in North America. He played Battalion, he played Apex, and then obviously coming into this. And I think that it's actually given him a lot of depth. And he's already shown his flexibility in playing at Tier 1 in two other esports. And when you look at his past playing Valorant, if you consider agents he's played kind of frequently, he's taken duelists, smokers, flashers, initiators. Like, this dude has literally played everything going back in the last year. So, man, I love watching BCJ, and I love seeing him succeed. Just had to give him a shout out.
Wasn't it BCJ that made the strafe jumping bunny hop video around maps for Battalion 2?
I think it might have been
him. I think so. Because like
we're going back a long time in my memory there.
Yeah. Oh, we were trying to get those coins to buy that M1 Garand. I mean, that's why those skins, that latest bundle, not the one before the latest bundle, was made just for him.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to use him too.
I mean, he looked amazing in that series, right? Again, like I said, 17-7 first kill to first death, playing as an initiator there. Really impressive stuff. Also, another Sova player in the server who had a great series was Hiko. I think he'd been getting a little bit of criticism lately. I think of just a little bit less than stellar performances, but he really steps up over the course of this series.
I think even then, like I remember chatting with some people in the green room before going into the tournament and casting it on last week, and Hiko, he was like, I think it was Tanner was telling, like, Hiko mentioned on his stream, hey, we're developing our strategy a little bit to not maybe have me as that last player going into the execution anymore to be that clutch. That hasn't changed. He's still going to be that last player and still going to try to clutch, but he's been clutching. And I don't think you need that formula to try to change things out and how Hiko plays, because now, again, that you have Ethan that's upgraded into the team and to what he's doing as his role, you don't need Hiko to try to run in and try to help him out. He's going to be the one that has to support Asuna to be able to throw those recon darts and also the owl drone to create that space for Asuna to get that first blood into the round. And then you need Hiko to stay alive as well for your retakes anyways. So to have him as that role to continue to clutch is totally fine for me. I think we just really have to hop off that train. I was gonna say something else, but we have to hop on that train to like continue to harp him.
I was never on that thing, if that's what you're saying. But here's the problem, right? This is actually a 100 Thieves fan base as well, though. I think there's some qualities that, by and large, the 100 Thieves fan base exhibit that are not always conducive to being able to deal well with nuance or to deal well with sort of strategic depth, and basically they have short attention spans and go for these hot takes everywhere. So. Poor Hiko, because unfortunately the 100 Thieves fanboy sword cuts both ways. And that's one of the ways I think him getting the reputation as like a beta, right? He always got criticism from the fans when they would lose games. It always ended up being his fault. And then it always fell to him to try and clutch rounds. So you really can't win either way if you're Hiko in those situations. Thanks to, firstly, 15th of April. So this Thursday, NA Challenges 2 for Stage 2 is kicking off. So not much of a breather there. We're going to jump straight back in, get back involved. I'm sure we'll see you there, Vans, on the mic.
I don't know yet, because it's open qualifiers, so I think we want to leave it for the others. But at least to confirm that it's going to be played on 2.06 and not 2.07. So technically, the Viper changes and the Euro changes are available, but the changes too. Exactly, the Bucky changes too. But what we just talked about earlier today about the extra gravity well from Astra and the raised satchel charges, that's not going to be in play for this week.
Okay, so bear that in mind as we go forward here. But before we talk about more recent events, just want to thank the Spike.gg for preparing and curating some of these resources for us to add to the discussion, because we are looking at Astra under the microscope this weekend, our segments in partnership with the Spike.gg. And right now, we're looking at the sort of pick rate and win rate over a few different teams here. So I mean, broadly, we can speak over this, Vans, is there were a couple different teams that tried to make Astra happen here. 100 Thieves, they only really took her on the split.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how Astra was played differently for a lot of these teams, right? So if I'm thinking about Envy as well, you have Mummy that's opting as an Astra that's going to place these stars in the beginning and then tries to get a pick, and if he needs to run away, he's going to pop off like a Nebula or like a Gravity Well so he could try to escape. So I thought it was going to be very difficult, but the way that he places it and plays them, it seems very viable because as soon as your stars are placed, then you could just activate them, right? But another player that plays it differently is going to be, for example, we did, as I mentioned before, from Exet. He doesn't really place his stars in the beginning. They're basically just trying to be more reactionary or even trying to sell more fakes against their opponents, which means they might lurk earlier on. They even try to use Weeded as an entry fragger or a second fragger before even placing their stars on an execute. So they're really good at conditioning their opponents as to like, okay, if a star, does it equal necessarily an execute or not? Or is it just going to be a fake? He recalls his stars too. It's just so much he could do. And then I even think about, maybe not into this one here, but C9 White again, using Astra as a lurk player too. When I think it was Jazzykins that was using her, if I'm not mistaken. No, it wasn't.
During game
Katsumi,
changes,
Katsumi,
right?
Katsumi,
Yeah.
Katsumi was, yeah, that's it. So pretty cool.
I found
Pretty cool to
what I
see.
found so interesting is that Exet used her on every map. They used her like 17 different maps, whereas other teams were much more sparing with the use of that Astra here. But in Europe, I'm seeing her on both sides. I'm seeing Astra everywhere, Mitch.
Yeah, I think the map that's been lacking has been Ascent, which is odd because looking at that graphic, Ascent has played a lot. Astra's played a lot on Ascent over in NA, so it's been a little bit of a weird one. But pretty much every team who's had the time to prepare has been pulling her out on split. And the reason I say that is because like G2 didn't, for example, but G2, as we discussed, they've had some recent roster changes last minute, so the time to adjust to a new meta is not what they're concerned with. They are concerned with playing good
The game.
and they've been doing
just
it
like Sentinels.
exactly. So I think like in EU though, she's definitely become, I would say, like an extremely high pick rate. I didn't actually pull up the stats before. The Spike GG only gave us NA stats. I'm hurt, but maybe there's something for next time they can hit us with.
Absolutely. I'd be interested to see what the use rates actually are for Astra in general. Obviously, we've got to see a little bit more from Europe as we segue into that segment, because we just had the end of the Challenges Stage 2. Challenges 2, week 2 of challenges ended. And here's the bracket. Oh, fuck me. I mean, like, what am I supposed to do? So what this does, this includes, I think, I'm trying to interpret this. This is the quarterfinals bracket, and it also includes the seeding, the play-in. So this is what, round of 16.
I think it's even more because right now it's going even further back.
It goes to
narrowing
round of
down
32, I think.
Yeah.
So let's start with this, right? Let's Ascend. I think this is in the play-in bracket. They go up against a team known as Illumina, which is a Polish roster. I think I'm familiar with Grobinho. I don't know where I know that name from, but anyway. So Ascend here, obviously they, after a pretty average challenges one here, they go up against this Illumina team, and it's actually a decent series. I mean, no other way of putting it. This one does get streamed, if I'm not mistaken. This is Lothar's stream covers it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. He was doing a good job with it too.
These boys are, they were actually very deep in the previous VCT, but they were playing under the name Chakalaka, and I can tell you they are a bitch to scrim against. They are really, really solid as a team. And obviously carrying it through into outside of scrims as well. The fact that they managed to not only take a map off of Ascend, like, okay, map 2 was 13-2. They got smashed. Bind was extremely close, though. That's the last round there, 13-9. But they beat them on Ascent 13-4. They trashed them. And the fact that they've been able to put up such a good fight, they came out of left field in the last wing of VCT. That's what I've taken to calling, because I can never fucking remember what it's actually called. Stage 7 of part 3, I don't know. But the
Section 501.c, yeah.
Oh, yes, let me just scroll to that one. Yeah, it's hard to follow for sure. But in the last leg of it, they made it really far, kind of out of nowhere. A lot of teams were surprised by them. And then obviously coming into this one, they've picked up an organization, and they've made a pretty good name for themselves. Again, a team that could have made it much further with a double elim bracket. I'm here with an agenda, and hopefully we'll see more from them in the future.
Thanks, Lothar. Obviously, Lothar, who casted the game in chat, just pointing out that IHG had some pretty average compositions on Icebox. No flashes or smokes on Icebox there, so maybe that series goes a little bit closer had that not been the case. On Ryan Central's stream, he covered Fnatic going up against the team known as Saw, who are a Portuguese roster. One of the players I recognize as a tier 2 Overwatch player. His name is Fat. This series here, this is where we get to see, how do we pronounce this guy's name? Durka and Magnum, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Durka on the
yeah.
Jet. Also, did he play Sova in the second map as well?
Yes.
Wow. So, I mean, wow, quite flexible. And Fnatic, this new look looks pretty decent. We touched on it earlier on here, Mitch, but let's refresh.
Yeah, it's nice to see that Durka wasn't coming in with the attitude of I'm a Jet, so fuck you. He came in and decided, because when they play the second map, you look at their composition there, they're playing with Viper, and when you're playing with Viper, you can get so much value out of having that Sova, more so than out of Jet. So I really appreciate him making those kind of plays, being willing to put himself on an agent where he cannot perform the same way, because he wasn't leading the scoreboard in that, but they edged out the victory. Again, saw a team that's impressed people, and one that would have went by the wayside. The point I was making while we were casting over the weekend was that for the most part, if you look back on how some of these games went, like for example, you would just look at the scoreboard and go, oh, Fnatic 2-0 Saw, cool, so we don't need to worry about Saw. You'd look at the games, go, oh, they were kind of close, but yeah, I guess Fnatic just kind of knew they'd win. They played loose and all this sort of shit. But no, Saw are actually a pretty decent team. We got to see, thanks to, I think it was Ryan streaming that one. And yeah, I think great look at the new Fnatic roster. Good promise for Portuguese teams. It just makes me so happy, man, seeing all these other teams I'm not used to seeing.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to actually get to see these games covered. Speaking of which, obviously on the mainstream, we'll call it the mainstream just for the ease of reference, it is G2 versus Heretics. Now, I had baby duty in the morning, so I'm sat on the couch like groggy at 7 a.m. watching this game, and yeah, I'm very impressed to see G2 show a bit more depth. Icebox was a really close affair. I think we saw Split first up in this series as well, and this is obviously Patstech moving over and playing a bit more of that Rain here, and we are starting to see Aussie perform, looking really good.
Yeah, Patstech won MVP of that series, and it's not surprising when you look at his Icebox performance. Dude went 7 for 1 in opening duels. You could just feel it. It came to a certain point in the second half where G2, they were just playing so aggressive. They were getting themselves into positions where they could capitalize off of, but it almost slipped away from them. You know, that over-aggression almost cost them the map. The fact that obviously we have Heretics as one of the top teams in the EU, I predicted it to be 2-0 for Heretics. I think most people did. The chat was going wild when G2 even took the first map. So a real sign that they're improving, and who would have thought, you know, getting an IGL actually helps.
It's so bizarre to me that they can just bring an IGL in and have him actually IGL and get these results. Like, I never heard of a plug and play IGL solution for a roster before.
That's true.
But it also gives a lot, I guess, to Aussie then, right? On how much he's been probably watching this game and studying the game. I don't know if he's necessarily played for any other teams before at a high level, but I'm pretty sure he's the type of person or the type of player that is going to be watching a lot and study this game as an IGL, and to be able to like say, okay, well, this is how G2 plays. This is how I think it should work. I guess he has some tie-ins with artists to be able to get picked up here, but yeah, I think they look great overall. I think I haven't watched the Icebox game, but I did watch the Split game, and like they had rounds where like even Pith was playing by himself inside B as a Cypher, because they had all of their players playing towards A Heaven and mid, just because they had predictions that Heretics was going to hit that spot, and it did, and it worked out. And other times where Aussie's even playing towards like top of trash of B, you have an execution that's going to happen towards this B site where Mixwell's like, well, screw it. He's going to throw some paint shells. Everybody's focused on him at the same time. Through a Cosmic Divide, there's Frost Orbs that comes in from G2 as well. So nobody focuses on Aussie on trash, and he gets like a 2K on top of that. So I think in terms of even synergy on how they want to work together with Aussie right now, and the communication with what they have for G2 has been upgraded. That's what I meant to say before, where I don't want to necessarily lose Zeke, but having Aussie right now has been a great addition to the roster for G2.
I wonder if G2 are going to integrate Astra play, because I think they're one of the few teams in Europe that just doesn't play her at this time, right?
Yeah, exactly as I was saying though. Like when you get this new player, and especially Aussie was saying that basically, so we had an interview with him, which was really fun because he sort of confirmed what we expected, that when you're IGLing for G2, it's not so much calling the strategies. Like, they have a lot that they can do. They have a lot of ideas. As is Aussie, it's more so pulling the reins back and be like, no, don't push there. No, come back, come on. No, stop.
It's one of them, like, it's one of them controversial leashes that you can put on kids that look like backpacks, but they're actually leashes.
Give it a refit. No, Pirate Tech, come back here.
It's the invisible fences for the dogs too, which we don't know that one, but
I hope he's not hitting them. That's hopefully it's all verbal. Aside from artists getting a new shock collar, I think everything was pretty good. For them, the problem is that he was one other thing. He also drew like lines on a map, like on all the maps. I was like, when we're on an anti-eco, this is the barrier. You don't pass it. You never walk past here. Stop them pushing, like things like that. So that was his focus coming in. He had to like get them all on the same page in that aspect. So I think to add on top of that, in the limited preparation time they had, playing a new agent and sort of shifting how you think about the game as a team would have been a little bit too much. So I think sticking to the basics was a good idea. But coming down the line, certainly by 2.07, I imagine they will be playing Astra.
Okay. Obviously, I just think it's interesting. You talk about drawing lines on a map, and that might seem kind of simplistic. That is a protocol. You're establishing protocols here as someone who's standing in as an IGL. So I'm quite impressed with that. I'll see if G2 can make use of that going forward. We can't talk about Europe, I don't think, without sort of talking about XDFuse, this opportunists roster now, who they look pretty comfortable in general. And they go up against a team called Platwa. Okay, brilliant. They qualify for the seeding bracket, which is also the quarterfinal. Look, whatever. They take on a team called CE Calling, who frankly I have no idea about. But in general, it looks like this opportunist team is still going to be very dangerous as we get into the main event here of Challengers 2.
Yeah, I've seen CE Calling a little bit. He's it's Musashi plays on that team, but again, I wouldn't estimate them in the top 8. That's they've slipped through the cracks. We'll see if they maintain it. For opportunists, you mentioned the team that they played against, Klatva. They're actually a really good Polish team. Again, there's been a couple of teams coming out of Poland now that are really surprising people. Klatva proved that Ballista were basically there on pot luck and aggression, but they've come through now with what I think is the best Polish roster we've seen so far. When it comes down to opportunists, though, we knew we were going to see them here. We absolutely knew we would, and I think it's sort of a guaranteed death for anybody they come up against in the bracket going through. Once you see them at the end, you might as well take the weekend off and go out for tea, because, well, if you could, without COVID. They're just so damn strong, and I think that the map that we have on the screen here just shows it. Bind was often considered kind of the more puggy map, where lesser teams who just have insane aim can bridge the gap between the more strategic teams like Opportunists, and well, they didn't, because Opportunists have individuals coming out their ass.
Yep, that's one way of putting it. They definitely have they're stacked with talent. There's no doubt about it. Hey, we can't talk about this without sort of discussing the elephant in the room. You guys go up against Team Liquid here, which is, and obviously Alliance is a team. You guys have expectations. There's no doubt about it, right? You've got a really star-studded roster, and you're looking for these big results. But looks like Yampi ripped you a new one.
Yep. Really glad I get to relive this one. It's not a fresh wound or anything, Yeah, it was, I gotta say, for Liquid, they came in prepared. They knew exactly what was going on. They were ready to take us down. We were trialing some new things, because that's the excuse you use now. I've seen it in North America. I've seen it in Europe as well. Heretics were using it last week, So yeah, we just tried out some new things, and that's why we lost. No, we had compositions that we wanted to try, but we'd obviously played them a lot in scrims. We were confident in them, but Liquid knew how to play against them, and apparently it's just give Yampi a fucking up and let him wreck you. But obviously there's more to it than just that. But this guy has been just unbelievable. Honestly, I think we should just ban everybody from Finland from playing in tournaments, and the world will be a better place.
Hey, how's XMS sort of acclimatizing to the roster? Obviously, the more recent pickup that was teased for a little bit here, obviously increasing the French connection aspect of this team a fair bit. How's he settling in?
So XMS obviously has a lot of experience, like insane amount of experience behind him. So having him on the roster has been invaluable for teaching the players. Like, some of these guys we have are obviously very young. Enzo and Sephiroth and Looker have their history in this game, whereas Hype and Cadaver are much newer. So it's nice to have somebody who has that extra bit of expertise to be that guiding light for the team. Again, if you look at that series, he definitely had a rougher time, but he's been a big performer for us. There's a reason, obviously, that he's coming off of Omen sometimes and going onto the Reyna instead, if we're playing the likes of an Astra, which we put on Looker, who's normally our flasher, but was playing playing a combination of Astra and Phoenix. Some new takes on the game, but ultimately it just comes down to preparation time for us. I think right now we're looking at sticking with this full 5-man roster, still believing in it and in some of the comps that we're running. It's just about getting more practice under the belt, which I guess we've got time for now with that Masters.
Yeah, sadly it looks that way, but still, I mean, some promising signs though over that series. Though I thought that Lucker on the Astra looked particularly good.
So just to confirm, looking at this bracket too, though, sorry, it's you guys have to play this, then top 2 goes into like another qualifier before Masters, right? Because you still have to match up against.
You have to play the regionals.
It is single elimination.
Regionals,
BO3s. The final team will still play for seeding, but they are through. They then go up against Turkish and CIS teams and European teams to determine which EMEA teams will go through.
Yeah,
and if that's single elimination, I might cry.
So Guild and FPX are already going to be in those challenges, right?
Yes.
And so it's Footballist and Oxygen Esports. So we have the Turkish teams that won challenges one there as well. So that's going to end up being what, like GSL style, right? We're going to have Group A, Group B with double elimination set up. I'm looking at a template here, so I don't know for sure, but
Yes.
either way, that looks exciting. But we still need to see what 2 teams are going there, right? We have 8 teams now in these Challenges 2 finals. It's not the Challenges finals, it's Challenges 2 Stage 2 finals. There's Challenges finals after. That's just general Challenges finals, regional finals. You can call them that if you like. So it kicks off on April the 15th. If you're on the West Coast, or PDT is 8 a.m. PDT. Different time zones, figure it out. It's not my responsibility to work out your times. Ascend take on Team Vitality first, then G2 Esports versus Fnatic. Then the next day we have Opportunities NIP and Team Liquid versus CE Calling. Here it is. Yinsu, I think, tweeted this now. Great time to be a lover of European Valorant and a great time to get into it right now, especially with all the extra streams and good-looking faces like Mitch is on the broadcast to bring you all the action. Mitch, mate, it's been a pleasure to have you here, man. Thank you so much for letting us pick your brain about European Valorant.
No worries, brother. Absolute pleasure sitting down with you boys. Had some fun.
And of course, big shout out to Hypoc as well, who definitely lent his expertise for much of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to be with you here once again. Next week, we're gonna have a lot to recap. I think we're definitely going to be talking about what happened in Europe. There's going to be a ton of games between now and then. Obviously, in NA, the open qualifiers are going to be kicking off there, so we'll have a ton of stuff to discuss. So take a breather. You've had your fill of hot takes for the week, and we'll see you back here, same time, same place. Remember, it's twitter.com/DNPeak. We have a YouTube now, which is youtube.com/Valoranting, and we're at Valoranting Show is where you can find the Twitter account for this actual show. Vansilli, MitchMan, it's a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen in the chat, thanks for joining us, having a ton of fun, and we'll see you next week on Valoranting.